Welcome back to Mia Horror Stories. Tonight's tale, my fitness tracker keeps logging steps while I'm dead asleep, is best experienced in the dark, which is why the screen will stay black. No distractions, no flashing images, just you, your imagination, and the story. So sit back, relax, and listen all the way to the end, if you dare. The first time it happened, I blamed the dog upstairs. At 3:17 in the morning, my fitness tracker buzzed against my wrist with that smug little pulse it used when I hit a goal. A soft insect click against bone. I came awake with my hand already raised in front of my face, the way you do when your body knows something before your brain catches up. The screen glowed pale blue in the dark. 10,000 steps. I stared at it for a few seconds, breathing through my mouth because my bedroom smelled faintly of radiator dust and the lavender detergent I used on my sheets. The apartment was still, except for the pipes ticking in the wall and the dull hum of traffic on Queens Boulevard 5 floors below. Somewhere above me, a dog gave one lonely bark, then scratched at a floorboard. That was enough of an explanation. I was half asleep. The tracker was cheap. The dog was restless. The city never stopped vibrating. I turned my wrist away and closed my eyes. My name is Mara Ellis. I'm 31, female, and at the time this started, I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment in Sunnyside, Queens, in one of those pre-war brick buildings that look solid from the street, but have thin walls, weird drafts, and stairwells that smell like old mail, wet umbrellas, and somebody's garlic-heavy dinner from 2 nights ago. I worked as a project coordinator for a medical supply company near Long Island City, which meant my days were spreadsheets, delayed shipments, and polite emails written while clenching my jaw. I wore the tracker because my doctor told me, gently but firmly, that sitting 12 hours a day was not a personality trait. Also because numbers made me feel safe. That's embarrassing to admit, but it's true. Steps, calories, sleep score, resting heart rate. Little graphs and badges and trend lines. If I could measure something, I could pretend I had it handled. I'd been that way since my dad died of a heart attack at 49, face down in the kitchen of our house in Erie, Pennsylvania, while I was away at college and missed 3 calls from my mother because I had my phone on silent. Ever since then, I had this quiet, private terror of being caught off guard by my own body. So I counted things. I checked things. I got annual blood work and flossed too hard and kept an emergency aspirin bottle in my purse. The tracker was supposed to make me less anxious. For the first 2 months, it did. Then came that 3:17 buzz. By morning, I had almost forgotten it. Sunlight had turned the curtains gray instead of black, and the radiator was hissing like it had something stuck in its throat. I lay there for a minute with my eyes open, listening to a garbage truck chew through bags on the curb. Then I remembered the notification and lifted my wrist. The app said I'd walked 10,842 steps the day before. That was wrong. Not wildly wrong, maybe, just wrong enough to bother me. I had taken the 7 train to work, sat through 3 meetings, eaten a sad desk salad, stopped at Food Bazaar for oat milk and eggs, then come home in a cold drizzle. I hadn't gone to the gym. I hadn't even taken the stairs. My normal lazy weekday number was around 5,500 if I was honest, and 6,200 if the subway escalator was broken. I tapped through the app, still lying under the blanket. The step graph had a spike between 2:48 and 3:16 a.m. 809 steps. While I was asleep, I blinked at the bars on the screen, each one neat and green and confident. Technology has a way of making nonsense look official if it puts it in a clean font. "Okay," I said out loud. My own voice sounded flat in the room. I got up and padded barefoot into the kitchen, where the floor was cold enough to make my toes curl. My apartment was narrow and rectangular, the kind of place where you could stand near the stove and see the bed, the front door, and half the bathroom mirror if the door was open. Nothing was disturbed. Deadbolt turned, chain hooked, window locks down. The grocery bag I'd left on the counter was still there. Eggs inside, because I'd apparently decided food safety was a problem for morning Mara. I checked the front door twice. Then I checked under the bed, which I hated myself for doing even while I was doing it. Dust, a missing sock, the flattened cardboard box from the fan I bought last summer because I never remembered to throw anything out on bulk pickup day. No person, no explanation. By the time I got to work, I had decided it was a software glitch. That's what I told Tessa anyway. Tessa Morno, 29, female, was my closest friend at work and the kind of person who wore red lipstick to 8:30 a.m. meetings because, as she once told me, someone in this office has to look like they survived on purpose. She was from Newark, sharp in a way that could cut through panic without making you feel stupid, and she had a talent for opening protein bars with her teeth while typing one-handed. She found me in the break room staring at the app instead of the coffee machine. "You look like the oat milk betrayed you," she said. "My tracker says I walked 800 steps in my sleep." She stopped chewing. "Like sleepwalking?" "No, like technology lying." "Have you ever sleepwalked?" "Not that I know of." That's exactly what a sleepwalker would say. I gave her a look. She leaned against the counter, lowering her voice even though nobody else was in there except the humming refrigerator and a printer coughing through a job in the next room. "Were you drunk?" "I had chamomile tea. Wild night in Queens. I'm serious." "I know." She held out her hand. "Show me." I showed her the graph. She squinted, then pinched the screen to zoom in. "Huh," she said. That was worse than if she'd laughed. "Huh, what?" "It's very regular." She tapped the bars. "See, it's not like random motion. It looks like walking. It's on my wrist. Maybe I moved in my sleep. For half an hour, I took the phone back. Thanks, very comforting. I'm not saying panic. I'm saying maybe check the app forum or call support or take the thing off tonight." There it was, the simple answer. Take it off. I nodded like I agreed, but even then, some stubborn part of me resisted. Taking it off meant I'd lose sleep data. It meant the night would become blank. And blank spaces were where my mind liked to put teeth. At lunch, I called the tracker company's support line from the sidewalk outside our building. The air smelled like roasted nuts from a cart and hot brake dust from delivery trucks. A bus exhaled at the curb. I held one finger in my free ear while a recorded voice told me my health journey mattered. Eventually, I got a person. His name was Colin Price, 34, male. Or at least that's what he told me in the careful, bright tone of someone being recorded for quality assurance. He was based somewhere in Ohio, judging by the number that flashed briefly when the call connected. And he sounded tired in the way customer service people sound tired when they're still trying to be kind. "So the device is logging steps during sleep?" Colin asked. "Yes, between 2:48 and 3:16 a.m. Were you wearing it snugly? Any chance it was placed near a vibrating surface? Washing machine, fan, pet activity?" "It was on my wrist, in bed." "Understood." I could hear him typing. "Sometimes repetitive arm movement can be interpreted as steps," he said. "Restless sleep, rhythmic movement, even certain sleep disorders. Have you noticed waking up in a different position?" "I wake up like I've been folded wrong, but that's because I'm 31. He gave a small, polite laugh. "You can try restarting the device. Also check for firmware updates. If it happens again, you may want to compare it with your phone's motion data." "My phone. If your phone is stationary while the watch logs movement, that helps narrow whether it's device related." "Right." He walked me through a reset. I stood by a loading dock with my coat collar pulled up while the tracker logo blinked on and off like a tiny heartbeat. Across the street, a man in a reflective vest dragged a pallet jack over uneven pavement. The wheels made a hard clack, clack, clack that landed unpleasantly close to the rhythm of steps. That night, I did everything a reasonable person would do. I updated the app. I restarted the tracker. I tightened the band one notch. I put my phone on the nightstand and made sure location services were enabled for motion tracking. I checked the front door, then checked it again, slower, because anxiety loves a ritual and hates being rushed. My neighbor across the hall caught me with my hand on the lock. Diane Kravitz, 68, female, lived in 5B and had been in the building since before I was born. She was widowed from Brooklyn and wore quilted vests indoors because she believed all landlords were personally trying to freeze old women to death. She carried a blue recycling bag in one hand and her little terrier mix, Mr. Pickle, under the other arm like a football. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked. "Yeah, just making sure it catches." She looked at the deadbolt, then at me. "These doors stick when the weather changes." "That's probably it." Mr. Pickle stared at me with wet black eyes and trembled for no clear reason. His tags jingled against his collar, tiny metal taps in the hallway. Diane shifted him higher on her hip. "You hear anything weird last night?" My hand tightened around the doorknob before I could stop it. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. Pickle was up, growling at the door around 3. Could have been pipes. Could have been that new guy on 4 coming in late. He wears boots like he's invading Poland. I smiled because she expected one. "Old buildings," I said. "Old buildings," she agreed, but she didn't move right away. Her eyes dropped to my wrist. "You counting steps now?" My doctor bullied me. Doctors do that when they run out of charm. Mr. Pickle gave one soft whine and pressed his nose into her vest. Diane looked down at him. All right, I'm going." Then, to me, quieter, "Chain your door. Not because of anything. Just because people are strange." The elevator clanked open behind her with nobody in it. She shuffled away, and I stood there longer than necessary, listening to her keys scrape against her lock. Inside, I made pasta, watched half an episode of a baking show, and tried not to keep glancing at the tracker. Around 11, rain started ticking against the window air conditioner, soft at first, then harder, each drop hitting the metal casing with a hollow ping. The bedroom took on that damp city smell, wet concrete and steam heat and old paint. I should have taken the tracker off. Instead, I opened the app and looked at the sleep settings. Tessa texted at 11:14, "Take it off, Fitbit goblin." I typed back, "It's not a Fitbit." She replied, "That's what the goblin wants me to think." Then, after a pause, seriously, "Put it on the nightstand. See what happens." I stared at the message. There was no good reason not to. The experiment was obvious. If the tracker logged steps while sitting still, it was broken. If it didn't, I could sleep better. Either way, useful data. But that private little fear rose in me, embarrassing and hot behind the ribs. What if I took it off and something happened that I couldn't measure? I know how that sounds. I knew it then, too. I stood in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, looking at myself in the mirror under the buzzing yellow light. My hair was tied badly at the top of my head. Toothpaste foam clung to one corner of my mouth. Behind me, the shower curtain shifted slightly from the draft, plastic rings clicking along the rod. "Don't be weird," I told my reflection. The pipes answered with a knock in the wall. I put the tracker on the nightstand for about 12 seconds. Then I picked it up again, strapped it to my wrist, and tightened it until the sensor pressed firmly against my skin. Sleep came in pieces. Rain, radiator hiss, a siren Dopplering down Skillman Avenue. Upstairs dog scratching, stopping, scratching again. At some point, I dreamed I was walking through the hallway at work with no shoes on, holding a carton of eggs against my chest, while everyone pretended not to notice. The buzz woke me at 3:09, not the goal buzz, a movement reminder, you're close. 246 steps to your hourly goal. The room was dark, except for the tracker face and a thin line of streetlight under the curtains. I lay on my back, both feet under the blanket, mouth dry, my heart doing that heavy, irritated thump it does when you wake too fast. A sound came from the hall outside my apartment. Not a crash, not a scream, just the faintest scrape, like rubber brushing painted wood. I didn't move. The scrape came again, closer to the bottom of my door. Then a pause. Then the tiny metallic tremble of the chain, so slight I could have convinced myself it was the radiator if I hadn't been staring straight toward the entryway. My phone sat on the nightstand, black screen reflecting the weak glow of the tracker. I reached for it slowly, thumb fumbling against the case. The tracker buzzed again. Time to move, I laughed once, quietly. It came out wrong. From the hall, Mr. Pickle started barking. Hi, frantic, muffled by Diane's door. Then my own doorknob shifted. Not far, not enough to open, just a careful test. A pressure, a release. The chain held. I sat up so fast the blanket slid to the floor. For a few seconds, all I could hear was my pulse in my ears, and the dog losing his mind across the hall. Then came Diane's voice, thin through the wall. "Who's there?" No one answered her. I grabbed my phone and turned on the camera, because calling 911 felt too large for the smallness of what had happened, and because some stupid, practical part of me wanted proof before I became the woman who called the police over a doorknob. The hallway light shone through the peephole in a warped amber dot. I stepped out of bed. The tracker counted it. 1 step. I took another. 2. The floorboards gave their usual soft complaint under my weight. The apartment smelled like cooling radiator metal and my own sharp sweat. In the kitchen, the refrigerator motor clicked off, and the sudden absence of its hum made the room feel wider. I moved toward the door with my phone raised. 3 steps. 4. At the peephole, I leaned in. The hallway was empty. Diane's door was shut. Mr. Pickle was still barking, but farther back now, like she'd pulled him into the kitchen. The elevator numbers glowed dimly at the end of the hall. 1 bulb flickered over the mail table, showing the peeling paint, the scuffed baseboards, the damp footprints near the stairwell door. Footprints. I froze with my eye to the peephole. They weren't dramatic, not muddy boot prints like in a movie. Just partial wet marks on the old tile, already fading at the edges. 1 near the stairwell. 1 by Diane's mat. 2 near mine. The last one pointed toward my door. My phone screen dimmed in my hand. Behind my back on my wrist, the tracker buzzed once more. I looked down. 3:11 a.m., 719 steps. I hadn't taken 719 steps. I hadn't taken 700 anything. From across the hall, Diane called my name. Mara, you awake? I kept my eye at the peephole, watching those damp marks fade under the cheap hallway light. Every reasonable explanation lined up and fell apart in the same breath. A delivery guy, a drunk neighbor, the new tenant on 4, a glitch, a prank, a door that stuck in wet weather. All of it possible. None of it enough. My thumb hovered over 911. Then Tessa's message lit up at the top of my phone, sent hours ago and still sitting there like a dare. Put it on the nightstand. See what happens. Diane called again, closer to her door now. Mara, I had a choice. Open the door and talk to her. Check the hallway. Compare what she heard with what my tracker had recorded. Or stay inside, chain locked, pretend the wet footprints belonged to someone else's problem, and let the app keep telling me what my own body had supposedly done in the dark. I stood there with the phone in one hand and my wrist glowing in the other, listening to the rain tap the air conditioner like fingernails on tin. And for the first time since my father died, I wished I had less data. Diane opened her door with the chain still on. That detail stuck with me later, maybe because I had done the same thing without thinking. In our building, the chain was mostly theater. A little brass strip pretending to be a wall. But at 3:13 in the morning, with wet footprints drying on the tile, and my tracker insisting I had walked 700 steps I didn't remember taking, it felt like the only thing keeping the hallway from spilling into our apartments. Mara, Diane said through the gap. Her face was sliced by the chain shadow, one eye visible, her gray hair flattened on one side from sleep. Mr. Pickle shoved his snout into the opening beneath her knee and barked until his whole body shook. I'm here, I said. My voice sounded too quiet. Did someone knock? No, he was at your door, I swallowed. Who? I don't know. I only saw she stopped, then looked down the hall toward the stairwell. I I only saw a shape go past the frosted glass. Tall. Maybe a man. Maybe that boy from 4. I didn't have my glasses. The stairwell door stood shut at the end of the hall, its small, wired glass window glowing dull yellow from the bulb inside. The wet prints led that way, fading fast. I had opened my own door only as far as the chain allowed. Cold hallway air slipped through the gap and touched my bare ankle. It smelled of rainwater, old paint, and something sourer underneath, like soaked wool left in a bag. "Did he try your door?" I asked. Diane looked embarrassed by the question, like fear was bad manners. Pickle growled before I heard anything. Then your knob moved. I saw it. I was looking through my peephole. The dog barked again, and the sound bounced down the hall in frantic little pieces. "Okay," I said, although nothing was okay. "I'm calling the police." Diane's visible eye widened. "For a doorknob. For someone testing my lock at 3 in the morning. And what if it's someone drunk on the wrong floor? Then he can be drunk while the police ask him why his shoes are wet." I expected her to argue, but she didn't. She just nodded once and unhooked her chain. "Let me put on my slippers," she said. "Don't come out." She gave me a look. "Sweetheart, I have lived in New York since 1978. I'm not hiding in my kitchen while some creep tries doors." That was how I learned that fear doesn't always make people cautious. Sometimes it makes them stubborn. Diane Kravitz, 68, female, was in the hallway 30 seconds later, wearing a quilted vest over a purple nightgown, orthopedic slippers, and an expression that said she had already decided the intruder was personally inconveniencing her. Mr. Pickle strained at the leash in her left hand, nails clicking on the tile. I had put on sneakers, but not socks. My phone was in one hand, open to the emergency dial screen. The tracker screen kept waking every time my wrist twitched. 724 steps. I turned it away. "Stay behind me," Diane said. "You are 68, and you're shaking." I hated that she noticed. Before I could answer, a door opened one floor below. The sound rose through the stairwell, a hinge squeal, then heavy steps, then a male voice muttering, "Hello." Diane and I both froze. Mr. Pickle stopped barking so suddenly the absence felt physical. The stairwell door on our floor opened, and a man looked out, holding a phone with its flashlight on. He was tall, white, early 30s, with dark hair shoved under a black beanie, and a short beard damp from the rain. He wore work boots, gray sweatpants, and a navy hoodie with paint on the sleeve. Diane exhaled sharply. Evan Walsh, 33 male, was the new tenant in 4C, originally from Boston, a freelance set builder who worked odd hours and carried lumber through the lobby at times that made everyone hate him a little. I had seen him twice before, once wrestling a sheet of plywood into the elevator, once apologizing to Diane because he'd blocked the mailboxes with a dolly. He looked less like a threat now than a man who had been dragged out of bed by noise and regretted becoming involved. "What's going on?" he asked. "You tell us," Diane said. His eyebrows lifted. "Me? Were you in this hall?" "No. You were stomping around at 3 yesterday," she said. "I came home at midnight. I've been asleep." He held up his phone. "Your dog woke me. That dog has better instincts than half the NYPD." "Okay," Evan said slowly, looking at me now. "Are you all right?" I was suddenly aware of my bare legs under an old college sweatshirt, my hair falling out of its tie. The way my phone screen showed 911 waiting under my thumb. It made me feel foolish, and that made me defensive. "Someone tried my door," I said. His expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough. The annoyance drained out of him. "Just now?" "Yes." He stepped fully into the hallway and looked at the tile. "Those yours?" The footprints were almost gone, but two dark shapes remained near my mat. Long, narrow, not Evan's heavy boot shape. "No," I said. Evan crouched, careful not to touch them. "Could be from the roof stairs. Window's been leaking in there," Diane scoffed. "So rainwater opened her door." I didn't say that. My phone vibrated against my palm. Not a call. Tessa. I must have accidentally called her earlier, or maybe my half-typed panic had sent something. Her name flashed once, twice, then stopped. A message came through. "Why are you awake?" Then another, "Mara." The tracker buzzed again. I flinched so hard Evan noticed. "You good?" he asked. "My watch keeps saying I'm walking." Diane turned toward me. "What?" I showed them. 3:18 a.m., 742 steps. Evan frowned. "It's broken." "That's what I thought. You're standing still." "I know." Diane crossed herself quickly, then pretended she hadn't. "No," I said, sharper than I meant to. "Not that. It's not that." Evan glanced at Diane, then back at me. "What brand is it?" I told him. My ex had one. They're weird with motion. Could be counting your pulse or tremors. "My pulse is not walking down the hall." The words came out louder than I intended. The stairwell light flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. All three of us looked at it. From somewhere below, a door slammed. Diane gripped Mr. Pickle's leash. "I'm calling the super." "Call the police first," I said. She hesitated. And in that hesitation, I understood something about the building that I had only half understood before. Everybody wanted a problem solved, but nobody wanted the kind of problem that made paperwork. Police meant reports. Reports meant the landlord. The landlord meant questions about locks, cameras, liability. Who saw what? Who didn't? Diane had lived there long enough to know how those things slid sideways until the person who complained became the problem. I pressed call before anyone could talk me out of it. The 911 operator sounded calm in a way that made me feel both safer and ridiculous. I gave my address. 5th floor. Possible attempted entry. Unknown person in hallway. No weapon seen. No one injured. "Are you in a secure location?" she asked. "I'm in the hallway." "Ma'am, please return to your apartment and lock the door." I looked at Diane. At Evan, at the stairwell. "Yes," I lied. "The operator said officers would be dispatched and asked me to stay on the line if I felt in immediate danger." I said I would. Then I hung up because standing there with an open call felt like admitting we were scared. Tessa called again. This time I answered. "What happened?" she said immediately. "Someone tried my door. There was no joke, no warm-up. Are you inside?" "I'm in the hall with Diane and the 4th floor guy." "Why are you in the hall?" "Because I'm an idiot. Go inside." I called 911. "Good, go inside." I looked at the stairwell window again. There are footprints. Mara, inside. A dull thud came from below. Not a slam this time. A heavy impact followed by a scraping drag. Evan stood. Diane whispered, "What was that?" The sound came again. Metal against metal. Then a low mechanical buzz. Evan moved toward the stairwell door. "Don't," Tessa said in my ear, hearing my breath change. "Whatever you're about to do, don't. I'm just looking." That sentence has killed people. Evan cracked the stairwell door open. Wet air gusted into the hallway, colder than before. The bulb inside flickered over concrete steps, painted a tired, institutional gray. Rain tapped somewhere above, too close and too loud for indoors. Evan pointed his phone flashlight down. On the landing between the 4th and 5th floors, something black lay against the wall. For 1 second, my brain refused to name it. Then Evan said, "That's a bag. A black duffel bag. Half unzipped." The zipper teeth caught the flashlight in tiny silver flashes. Diane said, "Is that yours?" "No," Evan said. The tracker buzzed on my wrist. 759 steps. The problem became concrete in that moment, not because of the bag itself, but because the app on my phone flashed a new notification over Tessa's call. Sleep session interrupted. Unusual movement detected. Under it, a map thumbnail loaded. Not a full map, just the little route preview the app sometimes made when it thought I had gone for a walk. A thin blue line, starting inside my apartment, moving into the hall, down 1 flight, looping around the stairwell landing, then back to my bed. My mouth went dry. "Mara," Tessa said. I lifted the phone closer, trying to understand the impossible-looking data in possible terms. GPS drift, bad signal, Bluetooth weirdness, my apartment stacked above the stairwell, the building confusing the app. Any explanation would do if I could force it to hold. But the route timestamp said 2:51 a.m. to 3:09 a.m. before I woke up, before the doorknob moved, before Diane called my name. I hadn't left my bed. Knew I hadn't. My feet were clean when I put on my sneakers. The chain had been hooked, unless I had unhooked it, unless I had walked, unless I had come back and locked myself in. No, that thought opened a hole in me so fast I almost dropped the phone. Not because of ghosts, not because of anything impossible, because sleepwalking was real, because people did things in their sleep and remembered nothing. Opened doors, crossed streets, cooked meals, drove cars sometimes, fell down stairs, hurt themselves, hurt other people, because I had built my whole adult life around catching danger early, measuring the signs, noticing the warnings. And maybe the thing I couldn't monitor was me. "Mara," Tessa said again, firmer now, "talk to me." The app says I walked downstairs. Silence on her end. Then, carefully, "Did you?" "No." "Are you sure?" I hated her for asking. Then I hated myself for hating her. I was asleep. That's not the same thing. Diane looked from my face to the phone. "What is it?" I showed her. She read slowly, lips moving. Evan leaned over her shoulder. "GPS inside buildings is garbage. I know. It could be snapping to bad points. I know." The duffel bag sat on the landing below us, mute and dark. From somewhere beneath it came another faint buzz. This one was not my tracker. Evan aimed his light harder. The buzz stopped, then started again. A phone, inside the bag. Diane stepped backward. "Absolutely not." "We should wait for the cops," I said. "Yes," Tessa said in my ear. Do that." Evan didn't move closer, but he kept the flashlight on the duffel. If someone's phone is in there, maybe they dropped it. At 3 in the morning while trying doors, Diane said. Maybe they fell. You see a body. No, then leave it. The buzzing continued. Short bursts. A call coming in again and again. I thought of the route on my app. Down one flight. Loop. Back up. I thought of myself asleep, hand on the chain, feet finding the hallway without me. I thought of my father's missed calls. 3 of them, stacked on my old phone the next morning while my mother screamed in the kitchen. A phone ringing from a bag in the stairwell felt like a demand. Not supernatural, worse, ordinary, human, urgent. What if someone's hurt? I said. Tessa made a frustrated sound. Then the police will help them. They're not here yet. Mara, listen to me. That is exactly how people get pulled into bad situations. Evan looked at me. She's right. Then why are you still standing there? Diane asked him. Because if someone is bleeding in the stairwell, I don't want to go back to bed. That shut us up. The phone in the bag stopped buzzing. A second later, from below, a woman's voice called faintly, "Hello." Diane grabbed my arm. The voice echoed up the stairwell, thin and warped by concrete. Is someone there? Evan's face changed again. He pushed the door wider. "Hello," he called down. "Are you okay?" No answer. Then a cough. A real cough. Wet. Painful. Tessa said. What was that? There's someone downstairs, I whispered. Do not go down there. But the choice had already changed shape. It was no longer open the door or stay inside. It was wait behind a locked door while someone possibly injured sat in the stairwell. Or step into the one place the blue line on my app said I had already been while asleep. The dispatcher had said officers were coming. In New York at 3 in the morning, that could mean 5 minutes or 40, depending on what else was happening in the precinct. The building had no working lobby camera. Diane had complained about it for months. The super had taped up a sign saying PARTS, ORDERED, as if the sign itself could record crime. My tracker pulsed again. This time I looked before I could stop myself. 765 steps. Heart rate elevated. No kidding. Evan rubbed his forehead with the back of his wrist. I'll go down one landing. Just one. You two stay here. No, Diane said. I'm not asking you to come. That's how it always starts. One idiot goes down, then another idiot follows because the first idiot doesn't answer. Despite everything, I almost laughed. The cough came again. Closer? No. Maybe just clearer. Mara, Tessa said, put me on speaker. I did. Her voice filled the hallway, tinny but steady. Everybody listen. Police are already coming, right? Yes, I said. Good. Nobody touches the bag. Nobody separates. If you check from the doorway with lights on, and you keep a clear path back inside. Mara, unlock nothing you don't have to. Diane, keep your dog back. Evan, don't be a hero. Evan stared at the phone. Who is this? The person with a functioning survival instinct. Fair. Diane nodded once, like Tessa had passed inspection. I opened my camera and started recording. The red dot appeared at the top of the screen. That helped. Proof helped. Data helped. Except now I didn't trust data. Evan stepped into the stairwell. I followed to the threshold. Diane came behind me with Mr. Pickle tucked under one arm, muttering that she knew she should have moved to Florida when her sister asked. The stairwell smelled strongly of rain now, and underneath it bleach, concrete dust, and something metallic. The roof leak had run down the center seam of the stairs, making a dark trail along the edge. On the landing below, the duffel bag twitched. Not much, just enough. Diane made a small choking sound. Evan whispered, "Did you see that?" "Yes," I said. The bag buzzed again. This time the vibration shifted it slightly against the wall. A phone, just a phone. Evan let out a breath. Okay. Then the lights went out. Not only the stairwell, the hallway behind us too. The building dropped into a thick, immediate dark, cut only by Evan's phone flashlight and the faint glow from my recording screen. Mr. Pickle exploded into barking. Diane cursed, loud and clean. Somewhere below, a door opened and someone yelled, "Power's out." The emergency light over the stairwell exit flickered once, failed, then came back weak and red, staining the concrete like diluted blood. And beneath us, on the 4th floor landing, the woman's voice came again. "Please," she said. Then my apartment door clicked behind me. A small sound, a familiar one, the chain sliding against wood. I turned so fast my shoulder hit the stairwell frame. My door, which I had left open only inches with the chain engaged, was now pulled nearly shut. From inside my apartment came the muffled chirp of my tracker app syncing to my phone. Then the screen on my wrist lit up. Workout detected, walking. Tessa's voice cracked through the speaker. "Mara, what was that?" No one answered her, because from inside my apartment, behind my chain door, something heavy moved across the bedroom floor. Not footsteps, a drag, slow, deliberate, like someone pulling a suitcase from under a bed. And the police still weren't there. For one awful second, nobody moved. The building had gone dark around us, and the only things holding shape were Evan's phone light, the weak red emergency glow in the stairwell, and the pale rectangle of my own screen recording the floor. Behind me, my apartment door sat nearly shut on the chain, as if someone inside had pulled it until the brass strip caught. From beyond, it came another slow drag across the bedroom, wood against wood, then a bump. Diane whispered, "Mara, is someone in there?" I couldn't answer. My throat had closed around the word yes and the word no at the same time. Tessa's voice snapped from my phone speaker. "Mara, move away from the door." The sound inside my apartment stopped. That was somehow worse. We were arranged badly, stupidly, the way people arrange themselves when fear interrupts common sense. Evan stood 2 steps down in the stairwell, one hand on the rail, flashlight aimed between the duffel bag on the landing and my face. Diane was in the hall behind me, clutching Mr. Pickle so tightly his collar tags were pressed silent against her vest. I was half in the stairwell doorway, half in the hall, with my apartment to my right, Diane's door across from mine, the elevator at the far end, and the dark stairwell dropping away to the 4th floor on my left. A person could come from any direction. That was the first trap. "Go into Diane's," Tessa said. "All of you. Lock the door. Wait for police." "My keys are inside," I said. "You don't need your keys to go into Diane's apartment." "My phone charger, my wallet, Mara." "I know." But I was staring at my door, at the chain, at the little wedge of black inside. The tracker on my wrist pulsed again. Workout in progress. I ripped the band off, not gently. The clasp scratched the inside of my wrist and left a bright pink line, I threw it onto the hallway runner like it was alive. It landed face up, still counting. 812 steps. Deanne made a small sound in the back of her throat. Evan came up from the stairwell. Okay, that's a device issue. Then, why did my door move? I said, because someone could be inside, he said, too quickly. The honesty of that hit me harder than if he tried to comfort me. Tessa said, nobody opens that door. A cough came from below again. The woman's voice followed, faint but distinct. Help me. Evan shut his eyes for half a second. Damn it. No, Diane said. No. That is not our problem until the police get here. She sounds hurt, I said. She sounds convenient, Tessa said. That was the first attempt to solve it. Retreat and wait. The sensible one. The one every warning video tells you to choose. We tried. Diane backed toward her apartment and fumbled with her keys, still holding the dog. Her hands were shaking so badly the key scraped circles around the lock instead of going in. Mr. Pickle squirmed, claws catching in her quilted vest. Give him to me, I said. I've got him. You don't, she snapped. I said I've got him, then immediately looked sorry. Evan took one step toward her to help. That was when the elevator at the end of the hallway groaned. Not opened, groaned. The old cab had stopped between floors when the power went out. Now the indicator above the doors flickered. 4, then blank, then 5, then blank again. Inside the shaft, cables creaked with a deep, industrial complaint that rolled through the wall and into my teeth. Mr. Pickle twisted free. Diane gasped. Pickle. He hit the floor and bolted. Not toward Diane's open door. Not toward me. Toward my apartment. The little dog shoved his nose into the gap between my door and the jamb and barked so violently his front paws slipped on the runner. From inside my apartment came a fast rustle, low to the floor. Evan lunged for the leash. Missed. I grabbed Mr. Pickle around the middle, and he bit me. Not badly. A small, hot clamp on the fleshy part of my thumb. I jerked back, more shocked than hurt, and blood welled in 2 neat beads. Sorry, Diane said, scooping him up. He doesn't bite. He never bites. He just did, Evan muttered. The tracker on the floor buzzed. 815 steps. I looked at the blood on my thumb. It felt absurdly intimate. Proof that this was not a dream, not an app screen, not a graph I could refresh. My hand throbbed. The hallway smelled like dog breath, damp wool, and the coppery sharpness of blood. Diane finally got her door unlocked. We stumbled inside her apartment. It was a mirror of mine, but warmer, crowded with framed photographs, crocheted blankets, a small television on mute, and the thick smell of menthol cough drops. Diane slammed the door, turned both locks, hooked the chain, then pushed a wooden chair under the knob even though it wouldn't do much. Evan stood by the wall, breathing hard. I pressed my bitten thumb into a dish towel Diane shoved at me. Tessa was still on speaker. Good, Tessa said. Stay there. Police are coming. Signal's bad, I said. My phone showed 1 bar. Stay near a window. Diane's apartment window faced the interior courtyard, not the street. Outside, rain fell into the narrow air shaft, hitting metal fire escapes with scattered pings. Across the shaft, other windows were dark or glowing with battery lights. A baby cried somewhere below, stopped, started again. Evan pulled up the flashlight on his phone and checked the hallway through Diane's peephole. "What do you see?" I asked, my own distorted face. "Helpful." He shifted. "Your door's still chained, mostly closed. Tracker S on the floor. And the stairwell, doors closed." Diane wrapped Mr. Pickle in a blanket until only his trembling snout showed. We waited. 30 seconds, maybe 40. Then my phone buzzed. Not a call. A notification from the Tracker app. New sleep data available. My stomach folded in on itself. "No," Tessa said, as if she could see my face through the phone. "Do not open that." I opened it. The app had synced from the tracker lying in the hallway. The sleep timeline showed a gap from 2:51 to 3:09, marked as awake/walking. But below that was something new, a heart rate graph. My resting heart rate had been normal all night, except during the walking interval when it dipped. Not rose, dipped, low and steady, like I had been deeply asleep. "That doesn't make sense," I said. "What?" Evan asked. "If I walked down the stairs, my heart rate would go up." "Unless the watch wasn't on you," Tessa said. The room went still. That was the second trap. I looked through Diane's peephole at the tracker lying on the runner outside my door, its face blinking softly in the dark. "If it wasn't on me," I said, "then who was wearing it?" No one answered. Then Evan said, "Or it's bad data." "Stop saying that like it fixes the door. I'm trying to keep us from spiraling." "I am allowed to spiral. My apartment is making noises." Diane touched my uninjured wrist. "Both of you lower your voices." Evan looked away first. His jaw flexed. Sorry, he wasn't wrong to push back. That made it worse. Each explanation had a corner of truth. The tracker could be broken. GPS could drift. Stress could turn shadows into threats. A dog could overreact. A building could knock and groan in a power outage. And still, from the hall came a soft electronic chime. My tracker. A second later, my phone displayed. Workout paused. Evan leaned to the peephole again. His shoulders stiffened. "What?" Diane asked. "The tracker's gone." I shoved him aside without thinking. The hallway runner was empty. My apartment door was now open as far as the chain allowed again. The tracker was no longer on the floor. That was our second attempt to solve it. Use the hallway camera and app data to understand what happened without leaving Diane's apartment. Failed before it really started, because the one piece of physical evidence we had vanished from 6 feet outside the door while all 3 of us were locked inside. Tessa said, "Mara, describe exactly what you're seeing." "The tracker is gone." "Did any of you see someone take it?" "No." "Could the dog have dragged it?" "Dog is here." "Could it have slid across carpet?" "No." Evan was already pulling up his phone. I recorded the hallway for a second when we came in. He played the clip. Dark hall. My door, the tracker on the runner. Diane's hand shaking near the lock. Mr. Pickle writhing in her arms. Evan's light swinging. Then the stairwell door behind us opened a crack. Only a crack. No face, no hand, just darkness widening. The clip ended. "Play it again," I said. He did. The crack of the stairwell door was real. "Someone was in the stairwell," Diane whispered. "Or air pressure," Evan said, but he didn't sound like he believed it anymore. Below us, the injured woman called again. "Please, I can't move." This time she added something else. "Evan," we all turned toward him. He went pale under the phone light. Diane said, "You know her." "No," She knows your name. She could have heard you. She said it like she knew you. I don't know her." But his voice had changed. Not guilt, something adjacent. Fear mixed with recognition he didn't want to name. "Evan," Tessa said from the phone, "is there anything you forgot to mention?" He rubbed both hands over his face. "I got a text earlier." My thumb pulsed under the towel. "What text?" I asked. "From an unknown number, around 2:30. It said, 'You're on the wrong floor.' I thought it was spam." Diane stared at him, and this did not seem relevant. I didn't connect it to anything until right now. You didn't connect a creepy text at 2:30 in the morning to someone trying doors. I was asleep when you all started yelling. We were not yelling. We are yelling now. Tessa cut in. "Send Mara a screenshot." He did. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. No profile image. 2:32 a.m. You're on the wrong floor. Another message below it, sent at 3:04. Don't let her back in. My mouth went dry again. "Her," Diane said. Evan looked at me. I hated that. I hated that everyone looked at me. "I was in bed," I said. "I didn't say you weren't," Evan said. But the damage was done. My own body had become a suspect in the room. A hard pounding hit Diane's door. Screamed. Mr. Pickle shrieked. Evan grabbed a ceramic lamp off the side table and raised it like a club. I nearly dropped my phone. "Police," a man shouted from the hall. "NYPD." For one bright instant, relief made me stupid. Diane lunged for the locks. Tessa yelled, "Wait." Diane froze with her hand on the deadbolt. "Ask for a badge number," Tessa said. The man outside pounded again. "Open the door." Evan lowered the lamp slightly. "They got here fast." "Too fast," I whispered. "Maybe." Diane called, "What precinct?" A pause. Then, muffled, "Open the door, ma'am." "Answer the question," Diane snapped. Another pause. Then a woman laughed, not loudly, not theatrically. Just a short exhale, almost amused. The pounding resumed harder. Diane backed away. My scalp prickled, but then the hallway emergency light flickered brighter, and through the peephole I saw the truth. Not police. The misdirection broke in the plainest, ugliest way. A middle-aged man in a dark jacket stood outside Diane's door, one hand braced on the frame. Beside him was a woman in pajamas holding a toddler. Behind them, two more tenants crowded the hall with phone flashlights. The man pounding was not pretending to be police. He was yelling for them. "Police," he shouted again down the stairwell. "Anybody call police?" Diane sagged against the wall. "Oh, for God's sake." Evan opened the door on the chain. The man outside was Peter Lang, 52, male, a fifth-floor tenant from 5D, originally from Chicago, with rain-flattened hair, and the furious panic of someone woken from sleep with no information. His wife, Elena Lang, 46, female from Warsaw, stood behind him clutching their grandson, both of them blinking in the emergency light. "What is happening?" Peter demanded. The elevator stopped. "My daughter is on 4. Someone was screaming. "There's someone in the stairwell," Evan said. Peter turned. "Where?" "Between floors, maybe lower." "Then why are we standing here?" "Because someone tried Mara's door," Diane said. "And there's a bag, a duffel," I said, "on the landing." Peter looked at us like we had all lost our minds in different directions. "Move." He pushed toward the stairwell. Evan caught his arm. "Don't touch the bag." Peter shoved him off. "My daughter is downstairs." That changed everything again. "Your daughter?" I asked. "Lena. She lives in 4B, she called Elena crying, and then the call dropped. Said someone was outside her door." Tessa went quiet. Diane whispered, "The woman." Peter stepped into the stairwell despite all of us telling him not to. Evan followed because someone had to. I followed because my apartment was no safer than the stairwell now, and because the blue line on my app had become a hook in my ribs. Diane came behind us with Mr. Pickle, swearing under her breath. Elena stayed in Diane's doorway with the toddler. The geography narrowed around us. 5th floor hallway behind. Stairwell ahead. Down 8 concrete steps to the small landing where the duffel bag sat against the wall. Turn right, 8 more steps to the 4th floor door. Below that, the stairwell continued to 3-2 lobby basement. Evan kept his flashlight on the bag. Peter called, "Lena." A woman answered from below, "Dad." Peter nearly ran. Evan grabbed him again. Wait. The duffel bag moved. This time we all saw it. A bulge shifted inside, slow and deliberate. Peter stopped dead. The bag buzzed. Then a small gray shape shot out of the unzipped gap. Diane screamed. Mr. Pickle went feral. The shape hit the wall, scrambled, and launched down the stairs. A rat. A big one, wet and furious, dragging a strip of black plastic caught around its back leg. It vanished through the railings toward the 4th floor. For half a second, nobody spoke. Then Evan laughed once, high and shaky. "Jesus." Diane slapped his arm. "Don't laugh. I'm not laughing because it's funny." The misdirection should have eased the pressure. It didn't, because with the rat gone, the duffel bag lay still and partly open. Evan's flashlight caught what was inside. Not a body, not a bomb, a pile of clothes, a phone, a roll of duct tape, a cheap black hoodie, a plastic key fob with a red tag, and my fitness tracker. The band was smeared with something dark. Mud, I thought. Then my bitten thumb throbbed. Not mud. Peter said, "What is that?" I stepped down onto the landing. Tessa said, "Mara, do not touch anything." I'm not. But I crouched close enough to see the tracker screen. Workout resumed. My heart beat so hard my vision sharpened at the edges. Evan aimed his light at the red tagged key fob. The tag had handwriting on it. 5A my apartment. Diane whispered, "No." A noise came from behind us. Not below. Above. From the 5th floor hallway. A door opening, my door. The chain scraped once, then snapped with a flat metallic ping. We all turned. At the top of the stairs, in the weak red emergency glow, my apartment door swung inward, wide. No one stood there, but my bedroom window, visible through the narrow line of my apartment, was open to the rain. Curtains lifted and fell, lifted and fell. And from inside my apartment, my phone's tracker app chirped through my hand. Route updated. A new blue line appeared. From the stairwell landing where I crouched, back into my apartment, then out the window, onto the fire escape. I looked from the phone to the open door, then to the duffel bag with my tracker and a key fob marked 5A below us. Peter shouted for Lena again, and she answered with a sob from behind the 4th floor door. Above us, something clanged on the fire escape outside my bedroom. A foot on metal. Then another. Retreat stopped being an option. Not because we were brave, because someone had my key, my tracker, and access to my apartment. because Peter's daughter was trapped on 4, because the police were still somewhere out in the wet city, and because the only way to reach the person on my fire escape was through the apartment I no longer owned alone. The sound on the fire escape came again, metal flexing under weight, a soft scrape, then a hollow little ring as someone's shoe touched the ladder outside my bedroom window. Nobody moved at first, not even Peter, who had been halfway down the stairs toward his daughter. The red emergency light washed all of us in the same sick color. Evan on the landing with his phone raised, Diane clutching Mr. Pickle against her chest, Peter gripping the rail hard enough that his knuckles shone, and me crouched beside the duffel bag with my tracker blinking among duct tape and damp clothes like it belonged there. From below, Lena sobbed, "Dad." Peter's head snapped toward the 4th floor door. "I'm coming, honey." "Wait," Evan said. Peter rounded on him. No more waiting. I stood too fast. My knee clipped the duffel bag and sent the phone inside buzzing against the concrete. The vibration made all of us flinch. "Peter," I said, "if someone is on my fire escape, they can get back into the building through another window. My daughter is downstairs, and my apartment is open. I don't care about your apartment." "I do," I snapped. The words came out sharp, ugly, and selfish. Then I looked at his face and hated myself for them. Tessa's voice crackled from my phone speaker, still in my hand. "Listen, you have 2 problems. Don't split unless you have to." "Too late," Diane said. She was right. The building had forced the split already. Lena was below us behind the 4th floor door. The intruder, or whoever had my key and tracker, was above us or inside my apartment or climbing the fire escape. The stairwell ran between them like a throat. Evan pointed to the duffel. "That key fob opens 5A Mara's place. If we let whoever that is get out through the fire escape, they're gone." Peter said, "And if my daughter is hurt while we play detective," Lena called again, weaker this time. "Dad, please." That settled it for him. Peter shoved past Evan and took the stairs 2 at a time. "Peter," Diane shouted. Evan swore and followed him. I grabbed the tracker from the duffel. It was wet and warm from its own battery, the band smeared dark along one edge. Not mud, not enough to be sure of blood either. Didn't put it back on. I held it pinched between 2 fingers like evidence, like a bug. My phone chirped. Workout resumed. The blue route line jumped. Stairwell landing. 5th floor, my apartment. Then a dotted line toward the fire escape. "It's still connected," I said. Tessa answered. "Then use it." That was the first time all night the data felt useful instead of accusing. I turned to Diane. "Can you stay here with Elena and call down anything you see?" Diane's mouth tightened. "I'm not useless." "I didn't say you were. I'm coming." "No." I looked at Mr. Pickle trembling in her arms. "Please, if something happens, someone has to tell the police where we went." That got through. Not because she was scared, because it gave her a job. She nodded once hard. "Fine, but don't be stupid." I think we're past that. I ran up the half flight toward my apartment. The hallway felt longer in the power outage, stretched and warped by the emergency light spilling from the stairwell. My door hung open. The chain had not been cut. It had been ripped from the jamb, screws torn loose with splinters still clinging to them. Inside, the apartment was dark except for the pale, rainy window light and the jittering beam of my phone. I stopped at the threshold. The air inside smelled wrong. Wet, metallic. My lavender detergent underneath it, faint and domestic, made it worse. "Mara," Tessa said, "I'm going in." "I know, keep talking." My front door is broken. Bedroom window open. I'm in the kitchen. The floor was slick near the entry. Water had blown in from somewhere or been tracked through. My sneakers squeaked and I froze. A scrape came from the bedroom. Close. I raised the phone with shaking hands. My apartment map was simple. Front door into the narrow kitchen, bathroom on the right, living area ahead, bed tucked near the window at the far end. No hallway, no mystery corners. I could see almost everything. Almost. The bed had been shoved 6 inches from the wall. That was the dragging sound. Cardboard fan box from under it sat open, dumped on its side. My closet door was ajar. Drawers pulled out, not ransacked wildly. Searched, quickly, but with purpose. The fire escape window was open from the bottom. Rain speckled the sill. The curtains lifted in wet breaths. Then a hand appeared on the outside rail. I stopped breathing. A woman climbed through my window, not a monster, not a shadow. A woman in a black hoodie, soaked through, hair plastered to her cheeks. Thin, white, maybe late 20s. She moved awkwardly, one leg dragging as she swung it over the sill. In her left hand, she held a small pry bar. For half a second, we stared at each other. She looked as scared as I felt. Then her eyes dropped to the tracker in my hand. "Give me that," she said. Her voice was hoarse. I stepped back. "Who are you?" She came fully through the window and winced when her right foot hit the floor. "Give me the tracker." "No, it's mine." It was on my wrist. "Not tonight." The sentence landed like a slap. Behind me, from the stairwell, Peter shouted, "Lena." The woman flinched at the name. "You're Lena," I said. Her jaw tightened. "Not Lena. Someone connected to Lena." Tessa whispered from my phone, "Mara, get out." The woman heard her. Her face changed. "Who's that?" "My friend." "Hang up." "No." She took a step forward. I backed into the kitchen counter. The edge hit my hip hard enough to send pain up my side. "I called the police," I said. That stopped her for one beat. Then she laughed without humor. "Good. Maybe they'll come before he does." "Before who?" She looked toward the open apartment door. A sound came from the stairwell below. A crash, Peter yelling, Evan shouting something I couldn't understand. The woman's grip tightened on the pry bar. I suddenly understood the worst part. She was not alone. That was when Evan stumbled into my doorway, one hand clamped over his forehead. Blood ran between his fingers and down his cheek. "Mara, move." Behind him, a man came fast up the stairwell. Tall, dark jacket, hood up, one hand on the rail. In the other, a phone with the flashlight off. The same height Diane had described. He slammed into Evan from behind. Evan hit the doorframe shoulder first and dropped to one knee. The tall man looked into my apartment. He saw the woman, then me, then the tracker in my hand. "Claire," he said, "Claire." Claire Bennett, 28, female, was the woman in my bedroom, American, soaked in rainwater, breathing hard through her teeth. Her eyes darted from him to the window and back again. She looked cornered now, not predatory. But cornered people are dangerous too. The tall man stepped over Evan. "Claire," he said again, softer this time, "you're making this worse." Claire raised the pry bar. "Stay back." I held up my phone without thinking. camera still recording. The man noticed. His face changed. He lunged. I threw the fitness tracker at him. It was a stupid move, desperate, but it hit him just under the eye. He swore and turned his head, and that half second gave me enough time to duck behind the kitchen island that was really just a rolling cart with a cutting board top. He grabbed for my phone. I pulled back. His fingers caught my sleeve instead and yanked. Fabric tore at the shoulder. My hip hit the counter again. Pain flashed white. Tessa screamed my name through the speaker. Claire moved. She didn't run. She swung. The pry bar struck the man's forearm with a heavy, meaty crack. He shouted and dropped his phone. The flashlight spun across the floor, beams sweeping cabinets, ceiling my own bare kitchen wall, Evan crawling up behind him. "Get out," Claire yelled at me. "I live here." "Then help me." The absurdity almost broke something in me. Behind the man, Evan grabbed him around the waist. The man drove an elbow back into Evan's already bleeding face. Evan folded, but didn't let go. He hooked one arm around the man's knee and dragged him sideways. They crashed into my little dining table. One chair snapped under them. The man hit the floor, rolled, and came up with a small folding knife in his hand. Everything went clipped then. Knife, Evan on the floor, Claire between the bed and window, me by the kitchen, door open, rain, Tessa shouting, my own breathing too loud. The man pointed the knife at Claire. "Give me the phone." "I don't have it," she said. "Don't lie." "It's in the bag." "It's gone." "No, it is." His eyes flicked to me. That was enough. I knew what he wanted wasn't the tracker, not really. The tracker was noise. The route, the steps, the false sleep data, all of it had been a side effect or a cover. "The phone in the duffel," I said. He looked at me for one fraction too long. Claire saw it too. She whispered, "You found it." I thought of the buzzing in the bag, the repeated calls, the unknown texts to Evan. The key fob marked 5A the duct tape. "What's on it?" I asked. The man moved toward me. Claire shouted. He recorded everything. Then Peter appeared in the doorway behind Evan, holding his daughter. The real Lena Lang, 24, female, American, was barefoot, crying and bleeding from a cut along her hairline. Peter had one arm around her waist. Her face was gray with shock. "She was locked in the trash room," Peter said, breathless. "4th floor service closet." He used the blackout. The man spun. Lena saw him and made a sound I will never forget. Not a scream. Smaller. The sound of someone's body trying to hide inside itself. "Grant," she said. Grant Holloway, 37 male, was American, tall and broad-shouldered, with rain on his jacket and a swelling welt under one eye where my tracker had hit him. He looked ordinary in the most frightening way. Office worker haircut, trimmed beard, dark sneakers, the kind of face you forget in an elevator. Later, we learned he had done contract maintenance work in the building 2 months earlier. That was how he had copied key fobs. That was how he knew which security camera was broken. That was how he knew the stairwell leak, the service closet, the blind spots. But in that moment, he was just the man with a knife in my apartment. Peter moved Lena behind him. Grant's eyes went flat. Everybody calmed down. "No," Diane shouted from the hall. She had come after all. Of course she had. She stood behind Peter with a fire extinguisher dragged from the stairwell cabinet. Both hands on the hose like she had no idea how it worked, and intended to use it anyway. "Diane, go back," I yelled. "Absolutely not." Grant grabbed my torn sleeve again and hauled me against him. The knife touched my side. Not deep, not yet, just enough pressure to make my whole body go rigid. "Phone," he said, "the one from the bag. Now." Tessa went silent on my speaker. Maybe she understood. Maybe she was recording. Maybe the call had dropped. Claire stared at the knife against me. "It's downstairs," she said. Grant pressed harder. A bright sting opened under my ribs. I made a sound I didn't recognize. "Don't," Evan said from the floor, blood dripping off his chin. Grant looked at him. "Shut up." Then the building lights came back, all at once. Kitchen light, hallway light, bathroom light. The sudden brightness flattened everything, made it ugly, human. No shadows to hide in now. Grant blinked. Diane pulled the extinguisher trigger. White powder exploded across the doorway. Not a clean, heroic blast. A choking, chaotic cloud that hit Peter, Lena, Evan, Grant, me, the walls, the floor, everything. I coughed so hard my knees buckled. Grant cursed and loosened his grip. The knife scraped across my sweatshirt and bit shallowly into my skin. I twisted away. Pain burned under my ribs. Claire charged him from the side. He swung blind. The knife caught her forearm. She cried out but kept moving, driving the pry bar into his knee. Grant collapsed sideways into the kitchen cart. I grabbed the first thing my hand found, the cast iron skillet I had left drying on the stove. It was heavy, real, ridiculous. I swung with both hands. The skillet hit his wrist. The knife clattered under the radiator. Grant screamed. Evan, bleeding and dazed, tackled him low. Peter joined, then Diane, still coughing, sprayed the extinguisher until it sputtered empty. Mr. Pickle barked from somewhere in the hallway like a tiny alarm system losing its mind. Grant fought hard. People never go down like they do on television. He bucked, kicked, got one hand free, slammed Peter's shoulder into the doorframe. Peter shouted and nearly fell. Evan took a knee to the ribs and made a wet, breathless sound. Claire ripped the cord from my bedside lamp and threw it to me. Hands, I didn't think. I looped it around Grant's wrist while Evan pinned his arm with his whole body. Peter caught the other wrist. Diane sat on Grant's lower legs with the grim commitment of a woman killing a spider. "Pull," Evan shouted. I pulled. The cord cut into my palms. My bitten thumb screamed. Grant thrashed once more, driving his head back into Evan's cheek. Evan swore and almost let go. Then Lena stepped forward. She was shaking so badly Peter tried to stop her. She ignored him. She picked up the fallen pry bar with both hands and pressed the curved end against Grant's throat. Not hard enough to crush, hard enough to make him still. "Don't," she said. One word, small, ruined, absolute. Grant stopped moving. Sirens rose outside. Not close enough, then closer. At first I thought I imagined them because I needed them. Then blue and red light pulsed against my rain-streaked bedroom window, flashing over the open fire escape, over my stripped bed, over the torn chain at the door. Tessa's voice came from my phone on the floor, faint under the coughing. "Mara, police are at the front." I stayed on with dispatch. "Mara, answer me." I crawled to the phone. My side burned. My hip throbbed. Blood Blood from my thumb had smeared across the screen. "I'm here," I said. "Oh my God," she breathed. The tracker lay near the sink where it had skidded after hitting Grant. Its screen was cracked now, still glowing, still recording. Workout complete, 1,402 steps. I stared at it until the numbers blurred, not because I believed them anymore, because they had been right in the worst possible way. Someone had been moving through my life while I slept. Not me, not a ghost, not a glitch. A man with copied access and patience. A man who had used the tracker after taking it from my wrist through the window. While I slept lightly under an open crack he had made in the frame days earlier. A man who had tried to confuse the record enough that if I complained, I would look anxious, unstable, unreliable. And he had almost succeeded. Uniformed officers filled the doorway a few minutes later, shouting instructions we were too exhausted to follow quickly. Grant was cuffed on my kitchen floor, with lamp cord still twisted around one wrist. Claire sat against the bed with a towel wrapped around her bleeding arm. Lena slid down the wall and sobbed into her hands. Evan leaned against the cabinets, face swollen, eyes unfocused. Diane refused to get off Grant's legs until a female officer promised her twice that he was not going anywhere. Then she stood, dusted extinguisher powder from her nightgown, and looked at me. "You're bleeding, sweetheart." I looked down. A red line had spread through the torn side of my sweatshirt. Not deep, but real. I pressed my hand against it and felt my body trembling under my palm. The sirens outside kept washing the room red and blue. Rain tapped the air conditioner. The tracker gave one last weak buzz on the floor, then the cracked screen went black. For the first time all night, nothing counted my steps. And somehow, that was not comforting at all. The first thing the paramedic asked me was whether I knew what day it was. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because after everything that had happened, the date felt like the least important piece of information in the room. I knew the smell of extinguisher powder. I knew the sound of Grant Holloway breathing through one nostril while an officer pressed him into my kitchen floor. I knew the wet tap of rain hitting my open bedroom window and the exact weight of my own hand pressed against the cut under my ribs. But the day, Thursday, I said. The paramedic, a stocky woman with tired eyes and blue gloves, nodded. "And your name, Mara Ellis." "Good, keep pressure there." The cut wasn't deep. That became the phrase everyone used because they needed it to be true in a way that mattered. It wasn't deep. It didn't hit anything major. It would need cleaning, butterfly strips, maybe a tetanus booster, because nobody liked the look of the knife. My thumb, where Mr. Pickle had bit me, throbbed worse than the slice in my side, which felt unfair but typical of the night. Evan sat on my kitchen floor with his back against the cabinets, holding a gauze pad to his forehead. His left eye had already started to swell. Every time he breathed too deeply, his mouth tightened, and the paramedic finally told him to stop pretending his ribs were fine. "I'm not pretending," he said. "You're doing a bad job of not pretending." Diane stood near the doorway wrapped in an emergency blanket, still wearing her purple nightgown under a dusting of white extinguisher powder. She looked like an angry pastry. Mr. Pickle trembled in her arms, his eyes huge and glassy, though by then he had stopped barking and moved on to quiet, exhausted hiccups. "I want it noted," Diane told one of the officers, "that the camera in the lobby has been broken for months." The officer, young and careful with his pen, said, "Yes, ma'am." "And the stairwell emergency lights failed." "Yes, ma'am." "And I complained." "I understand." "No, you are writing it down, but I want you to understand the difference." Across the room, Lena Lang sat on the edge of my bed with a blanket around her shoulders, staring at nothing. Her father stood beside her, one hand hovering over her back without quite touching, like he was afraid pressure would break her. Elena had taken the toddler into Diane's apartment, away from the questions, away from the blood, away from Grant being walked out in handcuffs, with his face turned toward the floor. Claire Bennett was treated by a second paramedic near the bedroom window. Her forearm had a clean cut that bled more dramatically than mine, but she stayed still while they bandaged it, jaw clenched, eyes on the floor. She had asked for a lawyer before she asked for water. That told me something. It told the police something too. Tessa was still on my phone when they finally found it under the kitchen cart. "Mara," she said, voice thin through the cracked speaker. "I'm here." There was a pause, then a shaky breath. "I heard too much. I know. I'm coming over." "You don't have to." "I'm already in a cab." Of course she was. The police separated us for statements as much as they could in a building hallway crowded with wet footprints, emergency responders, half-dressed neighbors, and a superintendent who arrived 30 minutes too late, wearing a Yankees jacket over pajama pants and repeating, "I had no idea," until Diane threatened to bite him herself. I gave my first statement, sitting in the back of an ambulance with the doors open to the rain. A detective named Rosalie Mendez, 42, female, spoke to me with a calm, unhurried voice. She had dark hair pulled into a tight bun, and the look of someone who had learned not to react too quickly to strange stories. "So you believed at first the device was malfunctioning?" she asked. I wanted to believe that. "And later you believed you might have been sleepwalking?" I looked down at my bandaged thumb. "Yes." She wrote that down without judgment. That helped more than I expected. "When did you first see Mr. Holloway?" "In my apartment, after Claire came in through the window. And before tonight, I started to say no. Then I stopped, because memory is not a clean file you pull from a drawer. It's more like a hallway with bad lighting. Once you know what to look for, things appear where they had been shadows before. A man in the lobby holding the door for me 2 weeks earlier while I balanced groceries against my hip. Dark jacket, trimmed beard, office worker haircut. A maintenance notice taped near the mailboxes in August. A scraping sound at my bedroom window that I had blamed on the wind. The feeling, once or twice, that my dresser drawer was not quite closed the way I left it. "I might have," I said. "I don't know." Detective Mendez looked up. "I hate that answer," I added. "I know." She asked about the tracker, the app, the steps, the route, the duffel bag. The key fob marked 5A. She asked whether I had ever given my keys to anyone, whether I dated anyone in the building, whether I had enemies, whether I had posted my routines online. No, I said to most of it. Then, to the last one, slower, I posted walking badges sometimes. Screenshots. Nothing with my address. Patterns can be enough, she said, not accusing, just true. That landed in me and stayed. By sunrise, the building looked ordinary again in the cruel way places do after violence. The power was back. The elevator worked. The hall lights buzzed overhead. Someone had propped the stairwell door open, and the wet concrete smell had spread onto the 5th floor. The duffel bag was gone, bagged as evidence. So was the tracker. So was the knife. My apartment door wouldn't close. The screws from the chain had torn out a ragged piece of the jamb, and the deadbolt plate hung loose. A crime scene tech photographed it from 3 angles while I stood in Diane's slippers, because my shoes had blood and extinguisher dust on them. "You're not staying here tonight," Tessa said. She had arrived just after 5, hair stuffed into a hood, face pale from the cab ride, and whatever she'd heard over the phone. She hugged me too carefully, then held me at arm's length and looked at the bandage under my sweatshirt. "I'm fine," I said. "You look like you fought a Roomba full of flour." "That's accurate, actually." She laughed once, then covered her mouth. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then she looked past me at my bedroom window. "You're coming to my place." I didn't argue. I wanted to. Some stubborn part of me wanted to reclaim the apartment immediately, to sleep there out of spite, to prove the walls still belonged to me. But when the wind pushed the curtain inward, my knees went loose. So I packed a bag while Tessa stood in the doorway and pretended not to be guarding me. I took jeans, socks, my laptop, medication, the aspirin bottle from my purse, and the framed photo of my father from my dresser. I left the sheets. I left the broken chair. I left the cast iron skillet on the floor where it had fallen, one side dusted white. In the hallway, Diane caught me before I left. Her face looked smaller in the morning light, the powder wiped from her cheeks, but still caught in her hairline. "You call me," she said, "when you get where you're going." "I will. And you come back when the locksmith comes. I don't trust the super to supervise air." "I will." She glanced down at my bandaged thumb. "Pickle feels terrible." Mr. Pickle, held under her arm, did not look sorry. He looked exhausted and suspicious. "He saved us before he bit me," I said. "He has layers." Evan was taken to urgent care by a neighbor from the 3rd floor. Before he left, he stood by the elevator with a split lip, one eye swollen almost shut, and his arm held carefully against his side. "I should have told you about the text sooner," he said. "Yes." He flinched a little at that. Then I sighed. "But I probably would have explained them away too." "Still." "Yeah, still," he nodded, accepting that. We weren't friends by sunrise, not exactly, but we were people who had tied a man's hands together with lamp cord. That creates a category nobody gives you a name for. Peter went with Lena to the hospital. She wouldn't let go of his sleeve as they moved down the hall. Before the elevator doors shut, she looked at me. "Claire tried to warn me," she said. Her voice was barely there. I stepped closer. "What?" She dated him, Grant. She knew he copied fobs. She said he still had access to the building. I didn't believe her. Then he was outside my door. The elevator began to close. Lena added, "She wasn't trying to hurt you." Then the doors met. That was the shape of the story the police filled in over the next week. Not all at once. Never cleanly. Grant Holloway had worked under a subcontractor hired for a series of repairs in our building after a pipe burst in August. During that time, he had copied at least 6 electronic fobs using a handheld reader. He had learned which cameras worked, which doors stuck, which residents lived alone, which ones came home late, which ones posted too much online. Claire Bennett had been his former girlfriend. She had gone to Lena because Lena had briefly dated Grant too, months before he worked in the building. Claire claimed she had found videos on an old phone Grant used, recordings of apartments, hallways, women sleeping, women changing, women coming and going. She said she stole the phone and tried to stash it in the duffel bag on the landing because she knew Grant was chasing her, and because Lena had agreed to meet her there and take it to the police. That part went wrong. Grant found Lena first, forced her into the 4th floor service closet, and used the blackout as cover. Claire got trapped outside on the fire escape after trying to reach my window, because my apartment was the one Grant had been using as a pass-through. He had loosened the latch earlier, had been inside before. My tracker mattered because I wore it every night. The detective believed Grant had entered my apartment at least twice before the climax of it all. Once to learn the layout, once to take the tracker while I slept, carry it through the route he wanted recorded, then return it before morning. Why? To confuse me if I noticed, to create a record that made me look unreliable, to make a future report sound like anxiety, sleepwalking, bad data. Maybe also because he enjoyed it. Detective Mendez did not say that part. Tessa did. We were in her Brooklyn kitchen 3 nights later, eating toast at midnight because neither of us could sleep. Rain ticked against her window unit, and I hated that sound now. He wanted you to doubt yourself, she said. I nodded. That's the whole thing. I did. Of course you did. He built it that way. I wore no tracker. My wrist had a pale indentation where the band used to sit, a ghost of pressure in the skin. Every few minutes, my thumb moved there automatically and found nothing. The first night at Tessa's, I woke at 3:11 and stood in her hallway without remembering getting out of bed. That is true. There was no intruder, no copied fob, no wet footprints, just me in borrowed sweatpants, standing between her bathroom and kitchen, heart hammering, with Tessa's cat staring at me from the sofa like I had disappointed him. Tessa found me because I knocked over a broom. You okay? She asked. I said yes, then sat on the floor and cried so hard my stitches pulled. The doctor later said stress could do that. Trauma could do that. Sleep disruption. Hypervigilance. A body continuing a danger after the danger was gone. That explanation was reasonable. I accepted it, mostly. Grant was charged with burglary, assault, unlawful surveillance, stalking, and a stack of other things that sounded both serious and insufficient. Claire was questioned for withholding evidence and breaking into the building, but Lena gave a statement supporting her version, and the phone from the duffel bag did what phones always do if you don't smash them well enough. It remembered. Grant had recorded more than the police initially told us. I only saw one still image by accident when Detective Mendez asked me to identify my bedroom. It showed my apartment from the foot of my bed, dark, except for the streetlight under the curtains. I was asleep in the frame. My wrist was visible above the blanket. The tracker screen glowed. I asked not to see anything else. I moved out of Sunnyside at the end of the month. The landlord let me break the lease after Diane threatened a tenant association meeting, 3 local news tips, and my nephew, who does internet. I moved to a smaller place in Astoria on the 2nd floor of a building, with cameras that actually recorded, locks I paid to replace myself, and windows that did not open onto a shared fire escape. It is almost ordinary now. I go to work. I answer emails. Tessa still sends me terrible memes. Diane calls every Sunday and begins each conversation by telling me what the landlord has failed to fix. Evan texted once to say his ribs healed crooked, but not badly. Lena moved in with her parents for a while. Claire, last I heard, took a plea for obstruction, but avoided jail because of the evidence she helped recover. And I walk, not with a tracker, just walk. I count blocks sometimes, but only in my head. Broadway to Steinway, Steinway to 31st, up to Astoria Park when the weather is clear. I try to let my body be a body and not a machine that owes me reports. Some nights are still bad. Some nights I wake at 3:17 with my hand raised in front of my face, expecting a blue glow that isn't there. I listen to the refrigerator, the pipes, a neighbor moving overhead, a dog barking 2 buildings away. I tell myself sounds are allowed to exist without being warnings. Most nights that works. The last unresolved thing is small. So small, I have never told Detective Mendez because I know exactly how it would sound. When the police returned my belongings, the tracker was in an evidence envelope. Cracked screen, broken clasp, dead battery. No band vibration, no pulse, no smug little notification. I signed for it, took it home, and put it in a kitchen drawer because throwing it away felt too easy and keeping it felt like a punishment. A week after I moved to Astoria, I opened that drawer looking for tape. The tracker was on, not fully, just a faint glow under the cracked glass. One notification sat on the dead screen, impossible to tap away. Goal achieved. I stood there in my new kitchen, sunlight on the floor, boxes still unpacked around me, and waited for the rational explanation to arrive. Battery reserve, screen malfunction, delayed sync, moisture damage, a device dying in pieces. All possible, all enough. I closed the drawer gently. Then I went outside and walked until my feet hurt, counting nothing. And that's the end of today's chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story and want more nights full of suspense, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and turn on the bell so you never miss a scare. I've got plenty more stories waiting for you, so stick around and check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe and don't look behind you. Welcome back to Mia Horror Stories. Tonight's tale, my GPS keeps rerouting me to a cemetery that doesn't exist, is best experienced in the dark, which is why the screen will stay black. No distractions, no flashing images, just you, your imagination, and the story. So sit back, relax, and listen all the way to the end, if you dare. The third time the GPS told us to turn left into the cornfield, Jonah laughed like he wanted it to be funny. Not a real laugh, more like air leaving a tire. There, he said, pointing through the windshield. That's definitely not County Road 18. The phone was mounted in the little suction cup holder I'd bought from a gas station outside Indianapolis, the kind that vibrated loose every 20 miles and left a greasy ring on the glass. On the screen, the blue route line bent sharply off the 2-lane blacktop and into a place where there was no road at all. Just wet October stalks leaning in rows, a drainage ditch shining faintly in the headlights, and a strip of broken fence with one strand of wire hanging low enough to catch on a bumper. The woman's voice said, calm as a librarian, "Turn left." I slowed down, more from reflex than obedience. Gravel clicked under the tires at the shoulder. Somewhere beyond the corn, a train horn sounded, long and low, softened by distance. "Don't," Maya said from the back seat. "I'm not turning into corn," I said. "You looked like you were thinking about it." I was looking at it. That's the first step. My name is Eli Mercer. I'm 32, male. And at the time, I was driving a silver 2015 Honda CR-V that had a check engine light I'd been ignoring since Pittsburgh. I did freelance event work, sound boards, rented lights, folding chairs, whatever paid, and that weekend I was supposed to deliver 3 boxes of microphones and a portable mixer to a small wedding venue near Bloomington, Indiana. Nothing dramatic, nothing worth remembering except that we were late. It was raining in that lazy Midwestern way where the windshield never got soaked enough for high-speed wipers. And I had trusted my phone because I trusted machines better than I trusted my own memory. That last part matters. I'm not proud of it, but I've always been the person who needs directions, even in places I've been before. I can remember people's voices after years, the smell of a room, the exact song that played during an argument, but roads don't settle in my head. They slide away. Exits, mile markers, which side of town the river is on. Gone. When I was 19, I got lost driving home from a night class in Columbus and ended up crying in a Kroger parking lot while my father talked me through the route over the phone. He didn't yell. That made it worse somehow. He just kept saying, "Look around. Tell me what you see." Like the world would confess if I described it clearly enough. Now I use GPS for everything. Groceries, doctor appointments, a coffee shop 5 minutes away. I let the blue line decide, and I followed. Usually, the blue line was better than me. In the passenger seat was Jonah Bell, 34, male, my closest friend since community college, and the kind of person who said he liked driving at night, because he didn't have to admit daylight made him anxious. He had a stubbled jaw, a Reds cap shoved low, and a habit of checking every mirror even when he wasn't driving. He'd come along because the wedding venue belonged to his cousin, and because I'd promised him $40 and gas station coffee. In the back seat, sitting sideways with her boots braced against one equipment case, was Maya Kessler, 29, female, a photographer from Louisville who had hired us both before and ended up becoming, by accident, the most practical person in most rooms. She was small, sharp-eyed, and currently holding my backup phone because she didn't believe in letting one device have all the power. Maya leaned forward between the seats. The CRV smelled like damp canvas, old fries, and the rubber floor mats Jonah had insisted I buy after he spilled chili during a county fair gig. "Keep going," she said. "The actual road has to reconnect somewhere." "That's what the actual road said 10 minutes ago," Jonah muttered. The GPS rerouted with a soft chime. A new blue line appeared. "Continue for 0.7 miles, the voice said. "Then turn left onto Peaceful Rest Lane." None of us spoke for a second. The road ahead narrowed under the headlights, shiny with rain. On the left, the corn ran tight to the ditch. On the right, a line of trees climbed out of low ground, black trunks cut by flashes of reflective fence posts. The nearest town, according to the last sign we'd passed, was Spencer, 7 miles back. Bloomington was supposed to be southeast. We were, according to every normal expectation, in rural Owen County with wet fields around us, and no reason to be nervous except poor visibility and a phone app having a stupid night. "Peaceful Rest Lane," Jonah said. Maya tapped my backup phone. "I don't have that. Mine says stay on this road for 12 miles. "Then we stay on this road," I said, trying to sound settled. "What does yours say the destination is?" she asked. "The venue. Show me." I didn't want to. That sounds childish, but it's true. The moment she asked, my fingers got stiff on the wheel. It wasn't that I thought the phone was haunted or any of that. It was that I had seen something a few minutes earlier and decided not to mention it because mentioning it would make me the guy in the car who was scared of a map. When the route had first changed, the destination name had flickered. Just for a second. Not Willow Creek Events. Not the address Jonah's cousin had texted us. Something else. I had caught only the last 2 words before the screen corrected itself. Memorial Cemetery. There are a lot of cemeteries. That's what I told myself. Rural Indiana has family plots tucked behind churches, little fenced rectangles beside township roads, old stones leaning into weeds. The app could have pulled a label from nearby. A map glitch, bad signal, outdated data. Any explanation that didn't require my stomach tightening over 2 ordinary words. Maya was still waiting. I lifted one hand from the wheel and turned the phone slightly. The destination line at the top read, "Willow Creek Events, 22 men happy," I asked. "Never," she said, but less annoyed. Jonah reached over and zoomed the map with 2 fingers. Peaceful Rest Lane isn't showing as a lane. It's just, look. The map did something strange under his touch. The blue route wriggled, then snapped back into place, like a rubber band pulled from under a thumb. For half a breath, the screen showed a grid of faint gray paths that didn't match the road around us. Small rectangles, a loop, a long oval drive. Then it blinked back. Jonah pulled his hand away. "Okay, I hate that. It's buffering," I said. "That's not what buffering looks like. You fix cars, not phones. I know enough to know when a phone is being a little freak." Maya made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Both of you are making me feel deeply safe." The rain got heavier. Not hard exactly, but denser. The drops tapping faster against the roof, until every gap in our conversation filled with that small metallic ticking. I turned the wipers up. The blades dragged across the glass with a faint squeal at the end of each pass. We had started the night ordinary. That's the part I keep returning to, because ordinary has weight. It has texture. You can hold it up later and say, see, there was no sign yet. There was no warning that mattered. At 6 that evening, we'd loaded the CRV behind a banquet hall in Cincinnati, while a drunk uncle from some other wedding smoked beside the dumpster, and told Jonah he looked like a young, divorced firefighter. We'd eaten drive-through burgers on I-74. Maya had complained about a bride who wanted candid but posed photos. Jonah had told a story about changing a starter motor in 20-degree weather while a customer's parrot screamed from inside the house. I had been tired in the familiar, manageable way that comes from too much coffee and not enough sleep. Then we hit construction near Indianapolis and lost almost an hour. Then the highway felt too bright after dark, every orange barrel shining with rain, every passing semi throwing dirty mist against the windshield. Then Jonah's cousin called twice asking where we were, and I said, 25 minutes out, the way people do when they don't know. By the time the GPS sent us off the main road, nobody argued. It looked reasonable at first. A shortcut through county roads. A way around a crash or closure we hadn't seen. The phone knew. I followed. The first wrong turn sent us past a closed feed store with a hand-painted sign for deer corn. The second put us on a road that narrowed to one lane over a rusted bridge. When we crossed it, something thumped under the car hard enough for Maya to say, "What was that?" And Jonah to lean forward, listening. "Branch," I said. "You don't know that." "No, but I'm choosing Branch." After the bridge, the road curved and dipped. The signal bars dropped from 2 to 1, then none. The GPS didn't stop talking. That was the thing I noticed, but tried not to notice. The map kept moving even with no service. "Turn left onto Peaceful Rest Lane," the voice said again. "There's no lane," Maya said. The headlights caught a wooden post at the edge of the field. For a second, I thought it was a mailbox. Then we drew closer, and it became one of those rural road markers with green paint, faded almost black. The sign was bent at one corner. Mud streaked the pole. "Peaceful Rest, LN." Jonah whispered, "Nope." I took my foot off the gas. The CRV rolled forward at 15 miles an hour. The lane was real, or real enough to have gravel. It ran between 2 breaks in the ditch, half hidden by grass, with a metal cattle gate standing open against the fence. Beyond that, the road disappeared under trees, not corn, tall trees, old ones. Their branches made a low tunnel over the gravel, and the headlights showed ruts filled with cloudy water. Maya held up my backup phone. "Mine still says straight." "So we go straight," Jonah said. The GPS said, "Turn left." "I heard you," I told it. Maya leaned back. "Do not talk to the app like it has feelings." It started. Jonah reached for the phone mount. "Turn it off. Don't touch it. Eli. I need the address." Maya has the address. Maya has no service either, but hers isn't inviting us down Murder Lane. Murder Lane is probably on the other side of town, Maya said. Nobody laughed that time. I drove past the turn. The phone chimed, rerouting. The blue line redrew itself, looping ahead and doubling back. estimated arrival changed from 22 minutes to 48. Then 17. Then the destination name flickered again. I saw it clearly this time. Rest Haven Memorial Cemetery. Then, just as quickly, Willow Creek events. My mouth went dry, not in a dramatic way, more like I'd taken medicine without water. "Did either of you see that?" I asked. "See what?" Maya said. Jonah had. I could tell by his face. He was looking at the phone the way people look at a dog that has started growling at an empty hallway. "It said cemetery," he said. Maya shifted forward again. "What cemetery?" "Rest Haven something." "There's a Rest Haven cemetery in town," she said. "You know that. I saw a sign when we stopped for gas." I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Where?" "Back near Spencer. It was next to a church, I think. Normal cemetery. Real cemetery." "Then why would it route us there?" "Because your phone is confused." That should have settled it. It almost did. A normal cemetery with a normal sign near a normal church. A mislabeled destination. A cached route. Maybe I'd bumped the screen at the gas station. Maybe Jonah had. Maybe the wedding venue's address was similar to some cemetery road. Technology does stupid things every day, and nobody writes a story about it unless the stupid thing leads somewhere worse. We kept driving. For about 2 minutes, everything returned to the shape of ordinary trouble. Rain, empty road, late delivery. Jonah texting his cousin when his phone caught a single bar for half a second. Maya rubbing a circle in the fogged rear window with her sleeve. My hands aching from gripping the wheel too hard. Then we passed the same deer corn sign again. I knew it before Jonah said anything. The feed store sat on the right this time, which made no sense because we hadn't turned around. Its windows were dark. The painted buck on the sign had one antler scraped off. Beside the door, a vending machine glowed weakly under the awning, stocked with bait cups and off-brand soda. Jonah sat up. No. Maya looked from the window to her phone. Maybe there are 2 stores. There are not 2 closed feed stores with a deer missing the same antler, he said. I pulled onto the shoulder. The tires settled into wet gravel with a soft crunch. The engine idled. Heat breathed from the vents, smelling faintly of dust and old antifreeze. Outside, rain ticked against the roof, and the corn shivered in the wind, each stalk scraping the next with a dry, papery rasp that somehow came through even with the windows up. My phone said, "Proceed to the route." Maya's phone said, "No route available." Jonah's phone had no signal and 9% battery. "Okay," Maya said carefully. "We stop being stubborn. We call someone." "Who?" Jonah asked. "Your cousin, police, tow truck, a pizza place, someone local." I unlocked my phone and tried Jonah's cousin first. The call failed. I tried again. Failed. Maya held her phone higher, angling it toward the windshield like signal might drip down from the clouds. "I've got nothing." Jonah opened his door. Cold, wet air rushed in, carrying the smell of mud, fertilizer, and something sweetly rotten from the ditch. The interior light came on, making us all look too pale. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Getting 1 bar. Don't wander off." I'm stepping 6 feet from the car. "Jonah." He looked at me then, not irritated, not joking. "I'm not going into the corn, man." That embarrassed me enough to shut me up. He climbed out, hunched against the rain, and held his phone above his head. His shoes splashed in the roadside gravel. The red light from the rear of the CRV reflected in the puddles around his ankles. Maya watched him through the side window. He's scared too. No, he's annoyed. Eli, what? Don't do that. I knew what she meant. I always translated fear into logistics. Gas, battery, signal, estimated arrival. Things with numbers. Things that could be solved if I pressed the right icon. Jonah turned slowly outside, searching for service. The glow of his phone lit the underside of his cap. Behind him, across the road, something pale shifted near the feed store window. I leaned forward. It was only a sheet of plastic taped inside the glass, moving in the draft. Only that. Still, my foot found the brake harder, as if the parked car might roll toward it. Jonah came back fast and got in, bringing rainwater and cold air with him. I got a text out, maybe. I don't know. It hung. To your cousin? Yeah, I sent our location. Maya gave a tired little laugh. Great. What location? Nobody answered. My phone chimed again. The route changed. This time, there was no blue line leading ahead. No loop. No alternate. Just one route, back the way we had come, turning left onto Peaceful Rest Lane. The arrival time read 6 minutes. Under destination, for 3 full seconds, in clean black text, it said, Rest Haven Memorial Cemetery. Address unavailable. Then it changed back to Willow Creek Events. Maya saw it. Her face went still. Screenshot it, she said. I fumbled with the buttons and missed it. Of course, Jonah said, too sharp. Don't start. I'm not starting. I'm saying, of course, the proof disappeared. Proof of what? Maya snapped. A buggy app, a bad map pin. We need to stay practical. I am being practical. Practical is not driving to a cemetery with no address because the robot lady wants us to. The GPS spoke over him. Make a U-turn. The 3 of us sat in the warm, damp car, staring at the road ahead. Straight on, the blacktop ran into rain and darkness, past the feed store, past wherever we had already been once. Behind us, somewhere out of sight, was the lane with the bent green sign and the open gate. The one Maya's phone refused to acknowledge. I should have turned the GPS off right then. I should have dug the printed invoice from the glove compartment and found the venue address under coffee receipts and tire pressure gauges. I should have driven back to Spencer, walked into the nearest lit building, and asked a human being with mud on their boots which way to Bloomington. But we were late. We were tired. We had already looped once on roads I couldn't hold in my head. Jonah's cousin was waiting with a wedding rehearsal full of people who had paid deposits and expected microphones. And beneath all that, quieter but stronger, was the old shame of needing someone to tell me where I was. I looked at Maya in the mirror. She didn't look brave. She looked cold and angry and practical. 6 minutes, she said. We don't have to go down the lane. We just get close enough to figure out whether it connects to a real road. Jonah stared at her. It is absolutely the sentence people say before needing rescue. She's right, I said, though I wasn't sure she was. He turned to me. Eli, we check the turn, that's it. We don't go far. If it looks bad, we back out. Maya nodded once. Hazards on. Slow. Windows cracked so we can hear if something's wrong with the tires. Jonah rubbed both hands over his face. His palms made a dry rasp against his stubble. I hate that those are reasonable details. I put the car in drive, then hesitated. Ahead, the feed store vending machine flickered once and went dark. The road seemed to shrink without it. My phone waited in its mount, bright and certain. "Make a U-turn," it said again. I turned on the hazards. Amber light clicked across the dashboard, steady as a pulse, and I began to swing the wheel left. The lane looked worse from the second approach. When we'd passed it the first time, I'd only had a few seconds to see the sign, the open gate, the ruts vanishing under trees. Now the hazard lights were ticking their amber rhythm over everything, on and off, making the gravel appear in broken pieces. One moment the road was there, pale and wet. The next it disappeared into black. The GPS had stopped talking. That was somehow worse. It just sat there in the mount, the blue triangle lined up perfectly with peaceful rest lane, as if the app had finally gotten what it wanted and didn't need to persuade us anymore. "Stop here," Maya said. I did. The CRV rolled to a halt just before the turn, angled slightly toward the lane. The wipers dragged rain sideways across the windshield. The headlights reached maybe 30 yards in before the trees swallowed the beams. Jonah leaned forward until his seatbelt locked. "Nope, that is not a shortcut. That is a farm access road with commitment issues." "It might connect to something," Maya said, though she didn't sound convinced. "Everything connects to something if you're willing to damage a suspension." I kept both hands on the wheel. My palms were slick. "We're not going in far." Jonah looked at me. "Then what are we doing?" I didn't answer right away because I didn't know how to explain the pressure building behind my ribs. It wasn't curiosity. Curiosity has room in it. This felt smaller, meaner, like the road had turned into a test, and I had already failed it by needing the test in the first place. I imagined calling Jonah's cousin and saying sorry. I couldn't deliver the equipment because my phone got confused, and I panicked in front of a gravel lane. I imagined Maya telling people later kindly that Eli got weird about directions sometimes. I imagined my father's voice from that old Kroger parking lot. "Look around. Tell me what you see." What I saw was a lane, a sign, an app telling me the answer was 6 minutes away. "I'm checking whether it's passable," I said. "That's all." Maya touched the back of my seat. "Slow enough that we can back out." Jonah exhaled through his nose. "I want it stated for the record that I hate this plan." "Recorded," Maya said. I turned. The CRV bumped over the lip of the lane. Wet gravel crackled under the tires, then softened into mud. Branches brushed the passenger side with a whispery drag. Jonah flinched at the sound. "Great," he muttered. "Car S getting petted by the Blair Witch." "No supernatural," Maya said automatically. "What?" "Nothing." We went maybe 40 feet. That was enough for the blacktop behind us to vanish between trees. The lane narrowed almost immediately, as if it had only pretended to be a road from the countryside. The ruts were deep, filled with brown water that reflected the headlights in trembling strips. The middle hump scraped once under the car, a dull plastic sound. I stopped. "Back up," Jonah said. "I know." I put the car in reverse. The backup camera filled with rain-blurred darkness and a sliver of the county road far behind us. I eased off the brake. The rear wheels spun, not dramatically, not movie-style mud spraying over the windows. Just a quick slip, a little lurch, and then that awful empty whir of tires failing to grip. I braked. Nobody spoke. I tried again, lighter this time. The CRV shifted backward maybe 6 inches. Then the left rear tire dropped into something with a wet thud. Maya grabbed the handle above the door. "What was that?" "Rut," I said. Jonah stared at me. "Eli, I know." The dashboard lit up with a small orange symbol, tire pressure. No, I said under my breath. Jonah saw it too. "Tell me that was already on." "It was." "Of course it was." "Don't." I put the car in park and stepped out before either of them could tell me not to. Rain hit my scalp and ran down behind my ears. The cold made me gasp. The lane smelled like wet leaves, mud, and the sour green odor of crushed weeds. My shoes sank at once. I crouched by the rear driver's side tire, using my phone flashlight. The beam shook over muddy rubber, the wheel well the ground. The tire was low, but not flat yet. Something silver stuck out near the sidewall. Not a nail. A strip of twisted metal, like a piece of old fence wire sharpened by rust and pressure. Jonah got out on the other side, slamming his door too hard. "What is it?" "Puncture." "How bad?" "Bad enough." Maya rolled down her window instead of stepping into the mud. "Can we drive on it?" "For a little," Jonah said, coming around. He crouched beside me and took the phone from my hand without asking. He knew cars better than I did. He worked at a repair shop outside Cincinnati and could diagnose trouble from sounds most people ignored. The confidence in his hands usually calmed me. It didn't now. He pressed 2 fingers into the tire and listened to the faint hiss. "That's sidewall," he said. "What does that mean?" Maya asked. "It means fix a flat won't fix it. Plug won't hold, we need the spare." "I have one," I said. Jonah gave me a look. "Do you have one, or does the car theoretically come with one?" "I have one." "When did you last check it?" The answer sat between us in the rain. He closed his eyes. "Eli, I thought it was there." "You thought?" "I know." The hiss continued, thin and steady. Maya got out then, pulling her jacket over her head. Her boots sank almost to the laces. "Okay, spare first, arguments later." We opened the rear hatch and unloaded just enough equipment to reach the compartment under the cargo floor. 3 microphone cases, a stand bag, a plastic bin of cables that clattered when Jonah dropped it onto the mud. The spare was there, flat, not low. Flat in the way old balloons are flat. Jonah stared at it for 2 full seconds, then laughed once. "It was a bad sound," I said. "I didn't know." "I believe you," he said. "That's the problem." Maya rubbed rain from her forehead. "Can we inflate it?" "With what?" I pointed weakly toward the side compartment. "There's a little compressor." Jonah dug it out. 12-volt compressor. "Great. If the tire holds air, maybe. If the battery likes us, maybe. If this thing wasn't manufactured during the Bush administration, maybe. Try it." He plugged it into the cigarette lighter and screwed the hose onto the spare's valve. The compressor buzzed loudly, a cheap plastic insect sound that filled the trees and made the lane feel even narrower. The pressure needle trembled, climbed a little, then dropped. Jonah shut it off. Valve stem S cracked. Maya looked back toward the county road. Through the trees, it was invisible now. We hadn't gone far, but the curve of the lane and the wet branches hid it completely. "Then we call roadside," she said. No signal, Jonah said. We walk back to the road and call from there. I glanced at my phone. Still no bars. The GPS remained open, as if service wasn't relevant to it. The destination said Willow Creek Events again, but the route line extended deeper into the lane. Estimated arrival, 5 minutes. We can walk to the road, I said, then maybe toward the feed store. There was a vending machine. Power, maybe camera, maybe a landline inside. Jonah wiped rain from his beard. Or we drive on the bad tire back to the road before it dies completely. Sidewalls already leaking, he said to himself, thinking it through. If we back out slow, maybe we get to the blacktop. But that rut Maya cut in. Then do it now. That was the first time I heard the time pressure as more than being late. The tire was losing air while we talked. The longer we sat, the less car we had. I got behind the wheel. Jonah stood outside with the flashlight, guiding me from the front quarter panel. Maya stayed near the rear, watching the tire. Straighten, Jonah called. No, your other straight. I can't see the rut. Because you drove into a soup trench. Helpful. The tire pressure warning glowed on the dash. The engine hummed. I shifted into reverse and eased back. The car moved. Good, Maya called. Slow. The rear wheels climbed a little. The bad tire made a soft, folding sound each rotation, like someone stepping on wet cardboard. I kept the wheel as straight as I could. My throat felt tight enough to hurt. Then the front passenger tire slipped sideways. Not far, maybe a foot, but enough that the CRV tilted toward the ditch. Jonah shouted, "Brake!" I did. The car stopped with a hard little bounce. Something under us knocked against the mud. For a second, there was only the rain and the engine and Jonah breathing through his mouth outside. Then Maya said, very quietly, "Eli, don't move." I didn't. Jonah came around the front, shining the light low. The beam caught water moving under the right side of the lane. Not sitting, moving. A narrow drainage cut ran beneath the mud, hidden by leaves and grass, and my passenger side front tire was half over it. Another foot, and the wheel could drop in. Jonah stood with his hands on his hips, rain dripping from the brim of his cap. "We're not backing out," he said. I turned the engine off. The sudden absence of vibration made the world feel bigger. Wet branches clicked against one another overhead. Somewhere in the trees, water poured steadily from a culvert or ditch. A hollow rushing sound that hadn't been there before, or that I hadn't noticed until the engine stopped. Maya opened my door. Out, carefully. We got the equipment cases back into the cargo area, mostly to keep the rain out of the connectors. Jonah insisted on leaving the heaviest stand bag on the lane behind the rear tire, as if it might become a traction aid later. Maya grabbed her camera bag and my backup phone. I took the printed invoice from the glove compartment at last. It was damp from some old coffee stain, folded into thirds. Willow Creek Events 7148 South Harrow Road, Bloomington. In there it was. A normal address. A real destination. The thing I should have pulled out 20 minutes earlier. Maya looked at it under her phone light. "Can you search the address on mine? No service. Map downloaded, not this area." Jonah snatched the paper, not meanly, but not gently. "South Harrow Road. That sounds real. We need a county road, a house, anything with a number on a mailbox." "And the car?" I asked. "The car is now a problem for tomorrow's version of us if tonight's version doesn't do something stupid. I almost said, I already did. Maya looked toward the lane ahead. The GPS says 5 minutes that way. Jonah stared at her. Do not start. I'm not saying we follow it blindly. I'm saying this lane may lead somewhere with a road name, a house, a gate, something. The blacktop behind us is hidden, and the car is blocking part of the lane. Walking back means squeezing past the drainage cut in the dark. We know the blacktop exists, Jonah said. We do not know what's ahead. We know the feed store is ahead if the road looped. No, I said. Both of them looked at me. I hated that I'd said it so sharply. I lowered my voice. No, if we go back to the blacktop, then the feed store. We don't know the lane connects to the feed store. The GPS spoke from inside the car, startling us badly enough that Maya cursed. Continue on peaceful rest lane. Jonah looked through the open driver's door at my phone. I thought you turned the engine off. I did. The phone's still on, Maya said. Turn it off, Jonah said. I reached in and tapped the screen. It didn't respond. Rain had beaded across the glass. I wiped it with my sleeve and tried again. The app ignored my finger. I pressed the side button. Nothing held it. Nothing. It's frozen, I said. Then throw it in the ditch. I need it. You need it for what? It just stranded us. That hit harder than he meant it to, or maybe exactly as hard as he meant it to. Maya stepped between us slightly. Enough, Jonah pointed at the phone. This is what I'm talking about. He'll follow that thing into a lake before admitting it's wrong. I said enough, Maya snapped. The rain intensified for half a minute, loud on the roof, loud on leaves, loud on our jackets. It gave us an excuse not to speak. Then a light appeared behind us. Faint at first, white, moving. All three of us turned toward the county road. Through the trees, beyond the curve, headlights swept across the wet trunks. A vehicle slowed near the entrance to the lane. Its beams caught the bent peaceful rest sign and made the green flash bright. Thank God, Maya said. Jonah raised both arms. Hey, the vehicle didn't pull in. It idled there, unseen, except for the headlights. The engine was low and diesel heavy. A truck, maybe. Rain distorted everything. I could hear tires on wet gravel or maybe just water in the ditch. Jonah started walking back toward it. Wait, Maya said. He didn't. Jonah, I called. He turned, annoyed. We need help. The truck's headlights switched off. Darkness dropped into the lane so quickly Jonah stopped mid-step. No parking lights. No door opening. No voice calling out. Just the rain and the pale reflection of our own hazard lights pulsing weakly from the CRV behind us. Then a flashlight clicked on near the road. Not a phone light, a real flashlight. Strong, white, steady. It pointed down the lane, at us. Maya moved closer to me. Why did they turn their headlights off? Jonah backed up one step. Maybe they don't want to blind us. The flashlight didn't wave, didn't signal. It stayed fixed. I could not see the person holding it. Only the beam, hard and bright, catching rain in silver streaks. Hello, Jonah called. We're stuck. Tires blown. No answer. The beam shifted slightly, moving over the CRV, the equipment cases visible through the rear window, Maya's camera bag, my face. It paused on the license plate. Then it clicked off. Hey, Jonah shouted. The diesel engine revved once. The vehicle moved away. Not fast, just rolled off along the blacktop, leaving the three of us in the lane with the hazard lights ticking and the tire hissing softer now because there was almost no air left to lose. Maya whispered, "That wasn't normal." Jonah came back to us. His face had changed. The annoyance was gone, leaving something flatter, more careful. "Maybe they went to get help," I said. He looked at me. "You believe that?" I didn't. Maya pulled out her phone again and held it toward the county road. Still nothing. No bars. The GPS said, "Continue for 0.4 miles. "Stop," Jonah said to it. I reached into the car and tried to power my phone off again. This time the screen responded, but not how it should have. The map zoomed out. For half a second, it showed the surrounding area in thin gray lines. The county road, the lane, a loop ahead, several rectangular shapes arranged in rows. Then a label appeared over the loop. Rest Haven Memorial Cemetery. Jonah saw it. Maya saw it. I pressed the side button hard enough to hurt my thumb. The screen went black. At once, all three of our phones buzzed. Maya yelped and nearly dropped hers. Jonah pulled his from his pocket. Mine, black-screened, vibrated in my hand. An emergency alert tone blared from Maya's phone first, then Jonah's, then mine. The sound was shrill and official, bouncing under the trees. On Maya's screen, white text appeared over a gray alert box. Flash flood warning Owen County. In seek higher ground immediately. Do not drive through flooded roads. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then the hollow, rushing sound in the ditch grew louder. Jonah turned his flashlight toward the drainage cut under the lane. Water was pushing through it faster now, brown and foamy, carrying leaves and bits of stalk. The place where my front tire had almost dropped in was widening at the edge as the mud collapsed in small bites. Maya said, "We can't stay here." The concrete problem had finally named itself. Not the GPS, not the cemetery label, not the truck that had stopped and watched us. Water. A county flash flood warning, a disabled car on a mud lane, no working spare, no signal strong enough for a call, and 3 people standing in the wrong place while the drainage ditch started eating the road. "We go back to the blacktop," Jonah said. A crack sounded behind us. Not a branch. A wet, heavy slump. Rear of the CRV dropped 2 inches as the bad tire folded completely off the rim, and the car shifted sideways, settling deeper into the rut. The stand bag Jonah had left behind it slid into brown water. The lane behind the car narrowed to a strip of mud between the vehicle and the ditch. Maya looked ahead into the trees, toward the route the GPS had insisted on. "There might be higher ground that way," she said. Jonah shook his head. "Or lower." The rain kept coming. The hazard lights clicked. The phone in my hand, powered off a moment ago, lit up by itself. No map this time, just one instruction across the screen. Continue ON foot. The first plan was the sensible one. Back to the blacktop. No heroics. No trusting the phone. No following a lane with a name that made all of us keep our voices lower than normal. We would squeeze around the CRV, get to the county road, walk toward the feed store, and keep moving until one of our phones found a bar or a porch light appeared through the rain. Simple, except nothing about mud is simple once you're standing in it. The CRV had settled diagonally across the lane, nose pointed deeper into the trees, rear end sagging toward the ditch behind us. On the driver's side, there was maybe 2 feet of passable ground between the car and the bank, and even that was soft enough that water shivered under the surface when you stepped. On the passenger side, the drainage cut had widened into a brown, moving trench. Not deep yet, not dramatic, but fast enough to carry leaves, twigs, and Jonah's canvas stand bag as if it weighed nothing. Single file, Jonah said. Driver's side, hands on the car. He had taken charge without asking, and for once I was grateful. His voice had gone flat and shop practical, the same tone he used when telling customers their breaks were not going to last until payday. Maya went first because she was smallest and because her boots had better tread. She kept one hand on the wet body of the car, fingers sliding over mud streaks and rainwater, and edged along the narrow strip. Her camera bag was cross-body against her chest, wrapped in her jacket. I followed with my phone shoved into my pocket like I could pretend it wasn't there. Jonah came last, carrying the useless tire compressor and a flashlight, because he refused to leave behind anything that might become useful later. The hazards clicked behind us. Amber light, dark. Amber light, dark. Every flash briefly showed the lane as pieces. Maya's boots, the side mirror, the rut filling behind the rear tire, Jonah's white knuckles on the roof rail. "Don't look at the ditch," Maya said. "I wasn't," I lied. The car shifted, barely. A little settling groan from the suspension, a wet suck from the mud under the bad tire. All 3 of us froze. "Keep moving," Jonah said, but quieter. Maya made it past the front bumper. I was almost there when my left foot sank to the ankle. The mud took my shoe with such force that my knee jerked forward and slammed into the fender. Pain flashed up my thigh. "Eli," Maya said, "I'm good." "You're not good. You made the noise." It was a surprised noise. Jonah grabbed the back of my jacket. "Don't yank. Twist." I twisted. The mud held. Rain ran down my neck, cold enough to make my shoulders hitch. I twisted again, harder, and my shoe came free with a sucking pop that sounded obscene under the trees. Then the bank behind me gave way. My right foot slid. For one instant, I felt empty space where ground should have been. Jonah hauled me back by my jacket so hard the zipper bit into my throat. "Move," he snapped. I moved. We stumbled to the front of the car and regrouped in the headlights. The beams pointed down the lane, away from the blacktop, making everything ahead look strangely inviting compared with the darkness behind us. Rain streamed through the light in silver lines. The lane continued straight for maybe 40 yards, then bent right around a cluster of trees. Behind us, on the other side of the CRV, the path back to the county road was now mostly hidden by the vehicle and the growing drainage cut. Maya pointed with her phone light. "We can still get around it if we go up the bank." The bank rose on the left side of the lane, thick with weeds and young trees. Beyond it, the cornfield. The same cornfield we'd refused to drive into. It ran along the county road, or at least I thought it did. If we climbed the bank and cut through the field, we might come out near the road without having to pass the ditch. Jonah looked up the slope. That's not a bank. That's wet clay with decorations. It's better than the ditch. It's better until someone falls and breaks a wrist. We need to try, she said. So we tried. That was the first attempt. We climbed the bank single file, using saplings as handholds. The mud there was slicker than on the lane, orange-brown clay that stuck to our palms and made the weeds bend loose from the roots. Maya got halfway up before her boot slipped. She caught herself on a thin tree trunk, breathing hard through her teeth. Okay, she said. Okay. Still fine. Jonah pushed from below, one hand braced under her boot. Left. There's a root on your left. She found it, climbed, reached the top. For a second, her flashlight swept over cornstalks. Then she said, "Oh, damn," not screamed, not even loud, just defeated. I climbed after her, my knee throbbing where I'd hit the car, and pulled myself up beside her. The field wasn't a field anymore. It had been cut by floodwater. A wide sheet of brown water lay between the bank and the visible rows of corn, moving slowly but steadily from right to left. It reflected the rain and our phone lights in broken glitter. The ground between us and the stalks had dropped into a shallow wash, maybe knee-deep in the middle, maybe deeper, where the water turned black near a collapsed fence. Across it, beyond the corn, I could see a pale ribbon that might have been the county road. Might have been. Jonah came up behind us, breathing hard. No. We could cross there, Maya said, pointing to a line of flattened grass. No, he repeated, moving water in the dark. You step into a hole, you're gone sideways before we can grab you. It's not that deep. You don't know that. She looked at him. Neither do you. He shone the flashlight into the wash. Something bumped along in the current, turning slowly. For one horrible second, it looked like a hand. Maya made a sharp sound and stepped back into me. The thing rolled in the light, pale and five-fingered, caught against a clump of grass. Jonah went still. I could hear my own breathing, too fast, too loud. Then the object spun free and bobbed closer. It was a work glove. White leather, swollen with water, the cuff dark with mud. Maya covered her face with one hand. God, I hate this. Jonah let out a shaky breath. Some farmer lost a glove. Or the truck driver did, I said before I could stop myself. They both looked at me. I wished I'd kept my mouth shut. The glove drifted away into the dark, no longer frightening, and somehow still not comforting. We followed the top of the bank for 20 yards, looking for a narrower crossing. There wasn't one. The wash widened to the left and vanished into brush. To the right, it fed directly into the drainage cut under the lane, water pouring through with that hollow throat sound we'd heard earlier. The geography settled in my head at last, cruelly clear. The county road was behind us and above us, but floodwater had opened a moving channel between the lane and the field. The car blocked the safer route back. The ditch was eating the edge behind it. The bank route was cut off. The first plan failed. We climbed back down to the front of the CRV, slipping and grabbing branches, all three of us muddy, now up to the shins. Jonah cursed when he landed wrong and twisted his ankle. He tried to hide it, but his next few steps had a hitch. Maya noticed. How bad? Fine, that's not a measurement. Annoying, not broken, she crouched, but he waved her off. I checked my phone. Black screen. No, not black. A faint glow under the glass, like the screen was waking from far away. I pressed the side button before it could fully light and held it down. Nothing. Maya saw my face. What? Nothing. Eli. I don't want to talk about the phone. Jonah laughed without humor. Fantastic. Love that sentence. The second plan came from Maya. The feed store, she said. If we can't get there by road, maybe the lane loops around. The GPS showed a loop. Cemeteries have loops. Farms have loops. Whatever this is, it might come out near the other side of the property. Or it goes deeper into low ground, Jonah said. She pointed down the lane ahead. Look at the slope. The headlights washed over the muddy track. Past the bend, the lane rose slightly. It wasn't much, but it was real. The water in the ruts ran back toward us, toward the car and the drainage cut. Higher ground, she said. Maybe not safer, but higher. Jonah looked behind us, then at the ditch, then at his ankle. He didn't want to agree. I could see him fighting it. Finally, he said, we go 5 minutes on foot. We mark our way. With what? I asked. Maya pulled a roll of fluorescent gaffer tape from her camera bag. I use it for marking tripod legs at receptions. Jonah blinked at her. Of course you do. She tore off a strip and wrapped it around a sapling beside the car. Bright pink, almost cheerful. We make markers, she said. If the lane branches, we don't rely on memory. She didn't look at me when she said it, which made it worse. We started down Peaceful Rest Lane. The CRV stayed behind us, headlights throwing our shadows long and thin ahead. The further we walked, the weaker the light became, until our own flashlights mattered more. The lane curved right around the cluster of trees, then straightened. On our left, the ground rose in a wooded ridge. On our right, it dropped toward the drainage ditch, now hidden behind brush but still audible. Water moving, always moving. Every 50 feet, Maya marked a branch or fence post with pink tape. The lane did show signs of human use. That should have comforted us. It didn't. There were tire tracks under the mud, recent enough that rain hadn't erased them. Wide tires. A truck or utility vehicle. At one point, Jonah crouched and shone his flashlight along the tread. Same diesel truck, I asked. Could be half the trucks in Indiana. That's not a no. No, Eli, it's not a no. A rusted chain lay coiled near a stump. A plastic bottle, crushed flat, had been wedged into a fork of a tree at shoulder height. We passed a metal post with a torn strip of orange survey ribbon tied to it. Beneath the rain and mud smell was another odor, faint but sour. Old flowers rotting in plastic. Maya noticed it too. Do you smell that? Jonah said. Compost. Not compost. Wet leaves, then. We kept walking. After maybe 4 minutes, the lane opened into a clearing. Not a cemetery. Not exactly. A circular gravel turnaround sat under the trees, its center choked with weeds. Around the circle were rectangles of bare earth and low concrete forms. Not graves. At least, not marked graves. More like old foundations or pads where small sheds had once stood. Some were cracked. Some had rebar sticking out of them. At the far side of the circle, a narrow track continued uphill between pines. Maya's phone buzzed once. We all stopped. 1 bar, she said. Call 911, Jonah said. She already was. The call screen appeared, connecting, then connected. For 2 seconds, we heard nothing. Then a woman's voice, chopped by static. 911, what is your emergency? Maya almost sobbed. Hi, we're stranded off a road near Spencer, Indiana. Our car is disabled. There's flooding, and the call crackled. Location. Maya looked at me. I unfolded the invoice with shaking hands, though it didn't help. We're off Peaceful Rest Lane, near County Road. I don't know the county road number. We came from Spencer. The GPS, Maya repeated. Peaceful Rest Lane. Rural road off. Static swallowed the dispatcher's response. Jonah grabbed his phone, trying to see if he had signal too. Tell them Owen County flash flood warning. Maya did. We need rescue or directions to higher ground. The dispatcher's voice broke through. Ma'am, I'm not showing a Peaceful Rest Lane in Owen County. Maya closed her eyes. Jonah whispered, ask about Rest Haven. Maya said, is there a Rest Haven Memorial Cemetery near here? Static. Then Rest Haven Cemetery is in Spencer near. The signal cut. The call timer froze at 00:19. Maya stared at the screen. No, come on. She tried redialing. Call failed. Tried again. Failed. The second plan had partially worked. We had reached higher ground. We had reached emergency services. We had learned Peaceful Rest Lane did not show in their system. And then the one bar vanished. Jonah limped in a slow circle, holding his phone up. Here, try over here. Maya moved to the center of the turnaround, redialed, failed. I walked toward the uphill track, thinking maybe elevation would help. My knee hurt with each step, a deep pulsing ache. Mud had worked into my sock. Every movement felt colder than the last. My phone turned on in my pocket. I felt the vibration against my thigh. I took it out. The map was open. The blue route line led from the clearing up the narrow track. Estimated arrival, 2 minutes. Destination, Rest Haven Memorial Cemetery. I almost threw it. I really did. My arm drew back. Maya said, don't. Her voice stopped me. We may need the flashlight, she said. I lowered my hand. Jonah came over, breathing hard. His limp was worse now. What does it say? I showed him. 2 minutes, he said. That's uphill. And supposedly a cemetery that doesn't exist, Maya said. No, he said. The lane doesn't exist. The cemetery exists somewhere else. Maybe someone copied a name onto private land. Maybe this is illegal dumping. Maybe an old family burial ground got mislabeled. I don't care what it's called. I care that uphill is better than downhill. That was the first time he sounded like he was convincing himself. A sound came from the trees behind us. A scrape, then another. Maya spun, flashlight raised. Something moved near the edge of the circular clearing, low and pale between the trunks. Jonah whispered, stay behind me. It came again, scrape, pause, scrape. The shape lurched forward. For one long second, my brain made it into a person crawling on elbows. A wet face, shoulders dragging, fingers clawing gravel. Then Maya's light steadied. It was Jonah's stand bag. The canvas bag had washed down through the drainage and snagged somewhere, then been pushed through a lower channel that fed into the clearing. It scraped over gravel in short jerks as water pulsed around it. The metal light stands inside, clanking softly. Jonah bent, hands on his knees, laughing too hard. Not because it was funny, because it wasn't a body. Okay, Maya said, voice trembling. That was explainable. Great, I said. Love explainable. But the bag told us something worse. Water was finding paths through the woods faster than we were. A faint stream now ran across the lower edge of the clearing, cutting between us and the lane we'd come from. Shallow, but growing. The pink tape marker on the last tree fluttered in the rain, already on the far side of the trickle. We need to move, Jonah said. Maya looked back down the lane toward the CRV. What about the car? The car is done. What about the equipment? Done. What about Maya? His voice cracked. Done. She nodded once, hard, like swallowing something sharp. We turned toward the uphill track. That was when the diesel engine returned. Not close at first. A low growl beyond the trees below us, somewhere near the county road. Then the sweep of headlights moved through the woods, broken by trunks. The truck was back at the lane entrance. For half a second, relief rose in me despite everything. Maybe they had gone for help. Maybe they had circled back. Maybe a local had decided 3 idiots in a mud lane were worth saving after all. Then the headlights moved onto peaceful rest lane, toward our car. Jonah took 1 step downhill. Hey, Maya grabbed his sleeve. Wait. The truck stopped near the CRV. We couldn't see it fully from the clearing, only slices of white light through trees and rain. A door opened, closed. A flashlight moved around the disabled car. Then another light appeared. 2 people. One bent near the rear hatch. Are they helping? I whispered. Jonah didn't answer. The CRV's hazard light stopped. The whole lane went darker. Maya's hand tightened around my sleeve. A metallic clunk carried up through the trees. Then another. The rear hatch opening, equipment being moved. Tools against the frame. Jonah started forward again, anger overriding caution. Hey, that's our car. One of the flashlights snapped upward toward us. It found the clearing, found us. For a moment, nobody moved. Then a man's voice shouted from below. I couldn't make out the words, only the tone, not surprised, not helpful, angry. Jonah backed up. Maya said, up, now, behind us. Water spread further across the clearing. Ahead, the narrow track climbed into pines. Below, 2 strangers stood near our disabled car, one of them shining a flashlight at us, and the route back to the blacktop ran straight past them through mud, floodwater, and a ditch that was already cutting the lane apart. My phone spoke from my hand. Continue on foot. This time, none of us argued. We ran uphill. At least we tried to. Jonah's ankle gave out after 20 yards, and he slammed into a pine trunk with his shoulder. Maya and I caught him, one under each arm. Behind us, the man shouted again. Closer now, or maybe the trees made it sound that way. The track narrowed. Branches slapped our faces. Pine needles stuck to our wet jackets. The ground changed from mud to slick brown needles over hard clay, steep enough that we had to lean forward and grab trunks to keep moving. My knee throbbed. Jonah's breath came in harsh grunts. Maya's camera bag banged against her ribs with each step. Halfway up the rise, we heard the sound that ended every argument about going back. A deep, tearing crack, not thunder, earth. We turned in time to see the lower lane give way near the drainage cut behind the CRV. The headlights from the truck tilted wildly as the bank slumped. Brown water surged across the roadbed, carrying mud, gravel, branches, and something dark that might have been one of our equipment cases. The path back to the county road collapsed into moving water. No squeezing past the car. No retracing the pink tape. No feed store. No blacktop. The only ground still above us was ahead. At the top of the hill, beyond the pines, a chain-link fence appeared in my flashlight beam. It ran left to right across the ridge, sagging in places, topped with old barbed wire. A narrow pedestrian gate stood open. A sign hung from it by one bolt, swinging in the rain. Private property, no trespassing rest, Haven Memorial Association. Jonah leaned against me, shaking from pain and effort. Maya looked down the hill, where the flashlights were moving again below us. Then she looked through the open gate. Beyond it, our lights caught rows of low rectangular shapes in the wet grass. Not headstones exactly. Concrete vault lids. Dozens of them. The gate creaked in the wind, opening wider. There was no road back anymore, so we went in. The place beyond the gate was not a cemetery the way I understood cemeteries. There were no angels, no polished stones, no little flags or plastic flowers trembling in the rain. Just rows of low concrete vault lids set into wet grass, each one about the size of a coffin, gray and rectangular, and numbered with black stencil paint. Some were level. Some had tilted as the earth beneath them shifted. Between the rows were strips of gravel that had almost disappeared under weeds, and beyond them, deeper in the property, stood a long metal building with a green roof and no windows facing us. The GPS said, "Arrived." Jonah was hanging between Maya and me, his bad ankle barely touching the ground. His red's cap was gone. Rain flattened his hair to his forehead. He tried to stand on his own and almost dropped. "Don't," Maya said. "I'm not being carried through a graveyard." "It's not a graveyard," she said. That didn't make it better. Behind us, down the hill, flashlights moved between the pines. 2 beams, maybe 3. They were climbing from the ruined lane, not fast, but steady. Whoever they were, they knew the ground better than we did. "Building," I said. Maya looked where I pointed. "Could be locked. Could be a phone. Could be people." Jonah laughed once, breathless. "At this point, I'm ready to meet people who use doors." We moved. Ground on the other side of the gate was firmer than the lane, but the grass hid ankle-deep holes. Maya kept one arm under Jonah's shoulder. I went ahead with my phone light, sweeping the path between concrete lids. The rectangles were arranged in long rows running north-south, with narrow gravel lanes between them. The fence line was behind us at the south edge. The metal building sat on the north side, maybe 80 yards away. To the east, the land dipped toward a drainage pond, black and swelling in the rain. To the west, beyond another sagging fence, there were trees, and what looked like an old service road running higher along the ridge. The numbers on the lids made my skin itch. A 17, a 18, a 19, then B1, B2, not names. Inventory. Maya noticed too. "These aren't graves." "No," Jonah said through his teeth. "Burial vault storage. Funeral homes use them. Precast concrete. They store them before installation." "How do you know that?" I asked. "My uncle sold cemetery equipment for 6 miserable months. Family gatherings were educational. That should have helped. It did, a little. Concrete vault lids in a fenced storage yard were ugly, but explainable. Rest Haven Memorial Association could have been a contractor, a defunct burial vault supplier, a forgotten business name still sitting in old map data, a place the GPS had latched onto because map databases are messy and old rural property records don't always die cleanly. Then we passed a vault lid with fresh mud smeared across it in handprints. Maya stopped. "Keep moving," Jonah said. She pointed. "Those are new." The handprints dragged from the edge toward the middle, 4 long streaks and a thumb. On the gravel beside the lid was a footprint. Work boot, large, filled with rainwater. A light swept across the fence behind us. We ducked instinctively. The beam moved through the gate, over the first row of concrete lids, then lifted toward the building. A voice called, "You 3 need to stop right there." Male, close enough to make out words now. Older, rough, with a county edge that flattened the vowels. Maya whispered, "Do we run?" Jonah tried to put weight on his ankle and hissed, "Define run." A second voice, younger and sharper, shouted, "This is private property." I almost answered. Some stupid part of me wanted to apologize. Explain, we got lost. Our car is stuck. The app brought us here. Please call 911. But the first man had watched us from the truck and left. He had come back. He had gone through our car. He had shut off our hazard lights. Those were not the steps of a person trying to help. We crouched between rows B and C, the concrete lids blocking us from the gate, only if the men stayed low. Rain struck the slabs around us with soft, flat taps. My phone screen brightened in my hand. A blue dot pulsed inside the property map. The route line went west now, not north to the building. West, toward the old service road beyond the fence. "Eli," Maya whispered, "do not. I'm not following it." But I was looking. The map showed a small structure near the west fence, a square labeled MAINT. Then a thin gray road leading out to something named Harrow Spur. Harrow, the printed invoice. South Harrow Road. My mouth opened before I thought. There might be a maintenance shed west, and a service road. Jonah stared at me. From the phone, from the map, the cursed map, it says Harrow Spur. Maya's eyes flicked between us. Harrow like the venue address. Maybe. Or maybe it's more bait, Jonah said. The flashlight beam swept closer. "Last warning," the older man called. "You're trespassing on burial property." Maya stood halfway, one hand raised. "We're stranded. Our car washed out near your gate. We called 911, but lost signal." The beam snapped onto her face. "Hands where I can see them," the younger man shouted. Maya froze. I saw them then. 2 men near the open gate, both in rain jackets. The older one was broad and heavy, late 50s maybe, with a gray beard and a ball cap pulled low. He held the flashlight. The younger one, 30s, thin and jumpy, had something long in his hands. For one awful second, I thought rifle. Then the beam shifted, and I saw it clearly. A pry bar, still not comforting. Jonah said quietly, "Ask why they went through the car." Maya called, "Did you find our car?" "Silver Honda. We need help getting out." The older man didn't answer that. He just started walking toward us. The younger man followed, pry bar low by his leg. "Move," Jonah said. We moved west, bent low, using the vault rows as cover. The concrete lids formed a crude maze. Row C, row D, then a gravel strip. Jonah stumbled, and I grabbed him under the ribs. He bit back a sound, but not all of it. The older man heard. His flashlight swung. Hey, we stopped being quiet. Maya ran ahead, tearing strips of pink tape from her roll and slapping them around fence posts, weeds, anything visible, not to find our way back anymore, to make a trail, to make evidence, to make the place look touched by someone who might be found later. Smart, terrified and smart. I had Jonah's left side. He hopped, dragged, hopped. His breath came in wet grunts. Behind us, boots hit gravel. The younger man was faster. Stop, he yelled. There's flooding past there. Maybe true, maybe not. We didn't stop. A vault lid shifted under Jonah's good foot. It tipped. Not much, just enough. His leg dropped into the gap between two concrete sections, and his weight pulled both of us down. I hit the ground shoulder first. Pain burst through my arm. Jonah screamed, a real scream. Maya spun back. Jonah. His shin had scraped along the concrete edge, tearing jeans and skin. Blood mixed instantly with rainwater, pinking the gravel. His bad ankle was twisted under him at an angle that made my stomach turn. The younger man's flashlight found us. He was 20 yards away. I grabbed Jonah under the arms. Up. I can't. You can. I can't, Eli. The younger man slowed when he saw the injury. The pry bar rose slightly, not like he was about to strike, more like he didn't know what to do with his hands. The older man came behind him, breathing hard. Get away from that row. Maya stepped between them and us, holding her camera like a weapon. Don't come closer. The older man shone the light directly into her eyes. Girl, you are standing over unstable vault covers in a flood. Move, then call 911. We don't need cops here. That sentence landed. Even the rain seemed to make room for it. Jonah looked up at me, face pale beneath mud. The pain had stripped all sarcasm from him. Maya said, "Why not?" The younger man said, "Dad, shut up." The older man snapped. Dad. So there were names we didn't know yet, but we had a shape. Father and son, private property, no cops, storage yard, washed out road, and a GPS database pointing lost drivers straight to their gate. The older man lowered the flashlight just enough for us to see his face. This land is condemned. You understand me? Flood took part of the lower road last spring. County was supposed to close access. People keep coming up here because of bad map data, and every time it becomes my problem. Then why did you leave us? I shouted. He looked at me. Because I thought you were with them. With who? The younger man shifted. The older man didn't answer. A sound came from the metal building to the north. A clang, then another. All of us turned. The long building's side door rattled from the inside. Maya whispered, "What was that?" The younger man looked genuinely scared now. "They're still in there." The older man cursed, low and vicious. The door rattled again, metal against metal. Then a voice from inside, muffled by rain and distance. "Open the damn door," not a ghost, not a whisper, a man, alive. Jonah clutched my sleeve. "Who is that?" The older man pointed the flashlight back at us. "Listen carefully. You want out. You help me keep them in, or nobody gets down before the road gives." Maya stared at him. "Are you insane?" The younger man said, "Dad, we can't." "Shut up, Ryan." Now we had one name. Ryan, 30s male, son of the older man, frightened and holding a pry bar like he wished he'd left it in the truck. The older man's name came a second later, shouted from the building. "Doyle, open this door, you son of a Doyle." The clang came again. Jonah spoke through clenched teeth. "What did you lock in there?" Doyle's face tightened. "Thieves." The word explained enough and not enough. The rusted metal in our tire, the truck watching, the vault lids smeared with fresh mud, the people inside the building. This wasn't a cemetery that didn't exist. It was an abandoned burial vault storage property, known to locals, misnamed in old map data, used by someone, maybe multiple someones, as a place to strip copper, dump stolen goods, or hide from weather. And tonight the flood, the GPS, and my need to obey a blue line had dropped us into the middle of it. The side door banged outward an inch. A chain held it shut. Doyle and Ryan had locked people inside, maybe thieves, maybe not. Another bang. The chain stretched. Ryan backed up. "They're going to break it." Doyle turned toward the building. That was the opening. Maya lifted her camera and fired the flash. Once, twice. White light exploded across the rows. Doyle shouted and flinched, throwing one arm over his face. Ryan stumbled, blinded, and dropped the pry bar. It clanged on gravel. "Now," Maya yelled. I hauled Jonah up with everything I had. He screamed again, but he got one foot under him. Maya grabbed the pry bar as she passed. We lurched west. No more stealth. No more debate. The west fence was close now, 20 yards, then 10. Beyond it, the old service road ran along the ridge, higher than the flooded property, rutted but intact. Between us and it stood chain link, barbed wire, and a maintenance gate secured with a rusted padlock. Maya jammed the pry bar through the chain. "Hold him," she said. I braced Jonah against a fence post. He sagged, shaking. Behind us, Doyle had recovered. "Ryan, get them." Ryan didn't. I looked back and saw him standing between his father and us, face washed white by rain. "Dad," he said, "they're hurt." The building door banged again. The chain on it snapped. A man burst out. Then another. Both in hoodies, both muddy, both carrying bolt cutters and canvas bags. Not workers, not victims in any simple way. One had blood running from his scalp. The other held a pistol. Small, black, real, everything narrowed. Maya froze at the gate. Doyle raised both hands. "Cal, don't." The man with the pistol pointed it at him. "You locked us in. You were stealing from me. You tried to drown us." The flood had reached the lower edge of the building. Water spread across the gravel lot, shallow but moving. The drainage pond to the east had overflowed, pouring through the rows toward the lower lane. The man with the pistol, Cal, apparently saw us. His face changed. Witnesses. That was the word I saw pass through him. "Phones," he said. Maya still held the pry bar and the padlock chain. My phone was in my pocket. Hers was in her jacket. Jonah's was dead or close to it. Doyle shouted, "They're nobodies. Let them go." Cal laughed once. "Now you're decent." The second thief, heavier, panicked, grabbed one of the canvas bags, and ran toward the west fence, straight at us. Maya swung the pry bar low, not at his head, not brave like movies. Desperate. She hit his shin. He went down hard, sliding in the wet grass, howling. Cal turned the pistol toward her. I threw my phone, not at him. I was too far and too scared, and my aim had never been good. I threw it at the concrete vault lid beside him. The screen shattered with a sharp pop and a burst of glass. The sound and movement made him flinch. His shot went wide. The gunshot was not loud the way movies make it. It was flat, brutal, swallowed by rain, and followed by a snapping sound from the pine above us as the bullet hit wood. Maya screamed. Jonah collapsed against the fence. Ryan tackled Cal from the side. They hit the ground together. The gun skittered across gravel toward a row of vault lids. Doyle moved for it. So did the heavier thief. So did I don't remember deciding. I remember Jonah saying my name, and then I was moving, limping, sliding, my knee sending hot pain up my leg every step. The gun stopped beside a tilted vault lid marked D14. The heavier thief reached it first. I hit him with my shoulder. We both went down. My face struck gravel, my mouth filled with mud and blood. His elbow caught me under the cheekbone. Light burst in my vision. He grabbed the gun. I grabbed his wrist. We rolled against the lid. It shifted. The edge dropped. His arm went down into the gap up to the elbow, gun and all. He screamed. Not fear, pain. The concrete had pinned him. He thrashed, trying to pull free. I crawled backward, choking. Doyle and Ryan were on Cal now. Maya was at the west gate, prying with a sound like teeth grinding. Jonah, on the ground, had dragged himself close enough to the fence to kick the chain with his good foot. Again, Maya shouted. He kicked. She pried. The padlock didn't break. The fence post did. Rust had eaten the bottom where it met the wet ground. The pressure tore the post sideways, and the gate sagged open just enough for a person to squeeze through. Maya, I yelled. She shoved Jonah first. He screamed as we dragged him through the gap, his injured leg catching briefly on the twisted fence wire. It tore more denim and skin. Blood streaked the metal. Maya went next. I was halfway through when Doyle shouted, "Take Ryan." Ryan was still tangled with Cal near the row. Cal had stopped fighting. Doyle had him pinned, knee in his back. But water was now running fast through the gravel strip between them and us. Ryan looked toward the service road, then toward his father, then toward the gun pinned under the vault lid with the heavier thief's arm. "Go," Doyle shouted at him. Ryan ran. He slipped once, caught himself, and made for the broken gate. Cal twisted under Doyle and slammed his head backward into Doyle's face. Doyle fell off him. Cal staggered up and looked for the gun, saw it trapped, saw us escaping. He pulled a knife instead. Ryan reached the gate at the same time Cal reached him. Maya swung the pry bar through the gap. It hit Cal's forearm with a thick crack. He dropped the knife and screamed, clutching his arm. Ryan dove through. I grabbed his jacket and hauled him onto the service road. Doyle was still inside the fence. For a second, he and I looked at each other through the rain. He had blood pouring from his nose. He was old, terrified, stubborn, and guilty of something I still didn't fully understand. Behind him, water surged around the vault rows. The man pinned by the concrete lid screamed for help. Cal was on his knees, one arm hanging wrong. "Come on," Ryan yelled. Doyle took one step toward us. Then The lower row of vault lids shifted. The floodwater undermined the gravel beneath them, and 3 concrete slabs tilted in sequence like massive dominoes settling into mud. One slammed down over the drainage channel with a sound that shook the fence. Doyle stumbled back. The route between him and the west gate disappeared under churning brown water. Ryan tried to go back through. Maya and I grabbed him. "No," he screamed. "Dad." Doyle stood on the far side, breathing hard, flashlight beam trembling in one hand. He looked at Ryan. Then he looked uphill, toward the metal building. "There's a ladder road behind the shed," he shouted. "Follow the service road west. It meets Harrow." "Dad." "Go." Then the flood hit the building's gravel apron, and the water between us became too wide to pretend. We went, not running now, staggering. The service road climbed along the ridge westward, exactly where the cracked map had shown it. Higher ground, rutted, overgrown, but above the flood. Maya and I dragged Jonah between us. Ryan followed, sobbing in short bursts, looking back every few seconds until the fence and the vault yard disappeared behind pine trunks and rain. After maybe 200 yards, the road bent south. There, at the bend, my dead phone vibrated once in my empty pocket. Except it wasn't in my pocket anymore. I'd thrown it. The vibration was phantom, my nerves firing where the weight of it had been all night. I almost laughed. Then I almost threw up. We found a paved road 10 minutes later. A real one. A narrow county spur with a metal sign leaning at the corner. Harrow Spur RD. Maya got 1 bar and called 911 again. This time the call held. When the dispatcher asked for our location, Maya looked at the sign, then at me, then back down the flooded dark behind us. "Harrow Spur Road," she said, voice shaking but clear. "West of Spencer. Multiple injured. Possible armed suspects. Flash flooding. Send deputies and rescue." Jonah lay on the wet shoulder, shivering and biting his sleeve against the pain. Ryan sat in the ditch grass with his head in his hands. I stood under the rain, face bleeding, knee throbbing, empty-handed for the first time all night. No phone, no blue line, no voice telling me where to go. Just a real road under my feet and the sound of sirens, very far away, trying to find us. The first deputy reached us before the ambulance. That's one of the details I remember clearly because it felt backwards. We were sitting on the shoulder of Harrow Spur Road, with Jonah half in my lap and half against the ditch grass. Maya standing over us, with her phone raised to keep the call connected. And Ryan sitting 10 feet away with his knees pulled up and his arms wrapped around them like he was trying to make himself smaller. Then red and blue light touched the wet trees. No siren at first, just light. A white Owen County Sheriff's SUV rolled around the bend. Slow, because the road was slick and narrow, and stopped with its tires hissing in runoff. A deputy stepped out wearing a rain jacket over his uniform, one hand resting near his holster, the other holding a flashlight. He was a man in his 40s, broad in the shoulders, with rain running off the brim of his hat. His name, I learned later, was Deputy Mark Harlan, 46, male, born in Indiana, and careful in the way rural cops can be careful when they know help is never as close as people think. He didn't rush us, didn't bark the way I expected. He just swept the light over our faces, Jonah's leg, Ryan's shaking hands, Maya's camera bag, my bloody mouth. "Which one of you called?" he asked. Maya lifted her phone. "Me, you armed?" "No, you," he asked Ryan. Ryan shook his head without looking up. The deputy's light stayed on him. "Name, Ryan Doyle." Something passed over Harlan's face, not surprise exactly, more like a file cabinet opening behind his eyes. "Where's your father, Ryan?" Ryan made a sound I don't want to hear again. It wasn't quite a sob. It was the sound a person makes when the worst answer is already pressing on their teeth and they're trying not to let it out. "Back there," Maya said, "inside the fenced property. There are at least 2 other men. One had a gun. One was pinned or hurt. There's flooding." Deputy Harlan looked down the road we'd come from, into the dark trees where the service track disappeared. "Rest Haven." None of us answered for a second. Then I said, "You know it. I know enough not to drive that way in a storm." That was the closest he came to scolding us. The ambulance arrived 5 minutes later, though it felt longer because Jonah kept drifting into a gray, quiet place, and then snapping back when Maya said his name. The paramedics cut his jeans from the knee down. His shin looked worse under their lights, a long, torn strip of skin and swelling around the ankle that made his foot sit wrong. He tried to joke when they put the oxygen monitor on his finger. "Do I get a discount if I don't bleed on the stretcher?" The female paramedic, Lisa Morneau, 38, female from Terre Haute, didn't smile. "You get a discount if you stop talking and let me check your pulse." He obeyed her. That scared me more than the blood. Maya had a split fingernail, bruised ribs from the camera bag, and hands scraped raw from the fence and pry bar. I had a bruised cheekbone, a cut inside my mouth, a swollen knee, and clay packed so deep into my shoe that the sock had turned brown. None of my injuries were serious enough to earn a stretcher, which meant I got to stand there and watch Jonah disappear into the ambulance with rainwater dripping from his hair onto the blanket. Before they closed the doors, he grabbed my sleeve. "Don't let them make this sound like we were idiots," he said. I almost laughed, and then I didn't. "I won't." He nodded once, exhausted. "We were idiots, but not only idiots." Then the doors shut. Maya went with him. She didn't ask. The paramedic let her climb in because she looked like someone who would otherwise jog behind the ambulance until her lungs gave out. I rode in the sheriff's SUV. Ryan rode in the back seat beside me, not handcuffed at first. He smelled like wet denim, panic sweat, and leaf mold. He stared at his hands the whole time. Deputy Harlan kept the heat on low and the radio murmuring. Words came through in pieces. High water, access blocked. Fire rescue staging, possible firearm. 2 suspects. 1 caretaker unaccounted for. Caretaker. That was the word they used for Doyle before they knew whether he was alive. At the hospital in Bloomington, ordinary fluorescent light made everything worse. The mud on my jeans looked theatrical. The blood on my jacket had dried in stiff dark marks. Nurses asked questions in calm voices, and I answered them badly. Yes, I knew the date. No, I had not lost consciousness. Yes, I understood they wanted to clean the cut in my mouth. No, I did not know my tetanus status with confidence. Maya sat beside me in the waiting area after they finished with her ribs. She had a paper cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Her hands shook every time someone rolled a cart over the tile because the wheels made a clattering sound too close to the vault lids, shifting in the floodwater. Jonah was in imaging. Ryan was with deputies in another room. The wedding venue called 4 times. That part sounds absurd, but it happened. Willow Creek Events finally got our number from Jonah's cousin and kept trying to reach us because the microphones never arrived and the rehearsal dinner had turned into a mess of borrowed speakers and shouting. Maya answered on the 5th call, listened for 3 seconds, then said, "There has been a serious accident," and hung up. I loved her for that. By morning, the story had started becoming paperwork. A detective took our statements separately. His name was Harold Voss, 52, male, from Ohio originally, and he had the tired courtesy of someone who had been lied to by people in worse shape than us. He asked me to start at the beginning, so I told him about the construction delay, the wrong turns, the app, Peaceful Rest Lane, the tire, the truck, the flood, the fenced property. When I said the GPS had turned itself back on, his pen paused. Not much. Enough for me to notice. "Phones do strange things when they're wet," he said. "It wasn't wet at first." He wrote something down. "Your phone was destroyed. I threw it at one of the suspects near him. Why? He had a gun." That, at least, made sense on paper. The official version, as it slowly formed over the next 2 days, was ugly but mostly human. Rest Haven Memorial Association had been a burial vault storage and maintenance, property tied to a family funeral business that folded years earlier. The land had passed through lawsuits, back taxes, and deferred inspections, until no one was entirely responsible for it except Doyle Whitcomb, 61, male, a local caretaker and former employee who still treated the place like a private kingdom because his father had worked there before him. The lower access road, the one marked Peaceful Rest Lane on my phone and nowhere in county emergency maps, had been damaged by spring floods and never properly closed. It remained in some old private road database. From there, it had found its way into at least one navigation service. Rest Haven Cemetery, the real one by the church in Spencer, had nothing to do with the vault yard except old business ties and a similar name. Cal and the other man, Calvin Reese, 39, male, and Trevor Baines, 42, male, both from southern Indiana, had been stealing copper, tools, and scrap metal from abandoned rural properties. Doyle and Ryan caught them at Rest Haven during the storm. Doyle, instead of calling police, blocked their truck, locked them in the maintenance building with a chain, and left to check the lower road when he saw our headlights near the entrance. He later claimed he thought we were part of the theft crew. "Claimed," Detective Voss said, in a tone that suggested claims are only useful after they've been dragged through mud. Ryan told them a different version. He said his father wanted to scare the thieves, teach them a lesson, maybe hold them there until morning, and make them return what they'd taken. Ryan said he begged Doyle to call the sheriff. Ryan also said when they saw our disabled CRV, Doyle went through it looking for IDs because he thought we were lookouts. He found our equipment cases instead. That made him more suspicious, not less. Cal's pistol was recovered from under a shifted vault lid after the floodwater dropped. Trevor's arm was crushed badly enough that surgeons had to put plates in it. Cal had a broken forearm from Maya's pry bar, and a list of charges that grew every time someone opened another evidence bag. Doyle survived. They found him clinging to the back ladder of the maintenance building just after dawn, nose broken, one shoulder dislocated, half hypothermic and furious at everyone. He was charged too, not with attempted murder, like Ryan kept saying in the hallway when he thought no one could hear him. Reckless confinement, obstruction, menacing. A few other words that sounded too clean for what it had felt like under the rain. Jonah had a torn ligament, a deep laceration, and a hairline fracture in his fibula from the vault lid fall. He needed surgery later that week. He blamed the mud, then the car, then me, then himself, depending on which painkiller had most recently entered his bloodstream. The first time I visited him, he was propped in a hospital bed with his leg wrapped and elevated, his face pale under the room's soft light. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Your spare tire was a war crime." I laughed so hard the cut in my mouth reopened. That was how we forgave each other enough to keep talking. Not completely, not neatly. Maya visited too. She brought printed copies of the photos she'd taken by accident and on purpose. Blurred shots of Doyle flinching under her flash. Pink tape on a fence post. Ryan's dropped pry bar in the gravel. The broken west gate. None of them looked like horror when printed on glossy paper under hospital lights. They looked like evidence. Wet, ugly, useful evidence. She kept one photo separate. It was the one she'd taken from the ambulance doorway, looking back down Harrow Spur Road. In it, rain softened the trees into gray streaks, and the road sign leaned at the bend. Harrow Spur RD. Proof of the exit. Proof of where we came out. She gave it to me without a word. I still have it. The CRV was found 2 days later, after the water receded enough for a tow crew to reach what was left of Peaceful Rest Lane from the county side. The rear hatch was open. Half the equipment was gone, though deputies later recovered some of it in Cal's truck. The front passenger side had dropped into the washout. Mud filled the floorboards. The phone mount was still stuck to the windshield, empty. Insurance called it flood damage. The app company called it a user navigation anomaly. That phrase arrived in an email 6 weeks later after Detective Voss asked them for location data. User navigation anomaly. Like I had wandered off inside a menu and gotten my friends hurt. According to the data they gave him, my phone had selected Willow Creek events as the destination at 8:14 p.m. at 9:02. It recalculated after a loss of signal. At 9:11, it rerouted to a cached private road segment associated with Rest Haven Memorial Association. At 9:26, after repeated deviations and limited GPS accuracy, the app inferred pedestrian continuation. Continue on foot. There it was, translated into corporate language. The company denied that the phone could power itself on after being turned off. They suggested moisture, accidental touches, delayed screen wake, battery instability from impact, or user stress perception. I did not argue. There was no point, because most of it could be explained. That was the worst part in the end. Not that it was impossible, that it was. A bad map pin, an old private road, a flood, a flat spare, a suspicious caretaker, thieves, human decisions stacking on top of software decisions until the result looked designed. People prefer mysteries with clean centers. A monster, a ghost, a curse, something you can name, reject, or believe in. What happened to us was messier. A dozen ordinary failures shook hands in the rain. 3 months later, Jonah still used a cane and complained about stairs with theatrical bitterness. Maya stopped taking rural night weddings unless someone else drove, and even then she printed directions before leaving. I sold what was left of the CRV for parts and bought an old Subaru from a retired teacher who had kept every service record in a folder. The first thing I checked was the spare. The second thing I did was put a paper atlas in the back seat. I still use GPS. That's the honest answer. I wish I could say I threw away every navigation app and became the kind of man who reads stars and highway signs with quiet confidence. I didn't. I still need directions to places I've been before. I still feel that old panic when roads fork and traffic pushes behind me. But now I keep the volume off. I look around. I tell myself what I see. On clear days, that's enough. On rainy nights, sometimes it is. A week ago, I drove through southern Indiana again for work. Not near Spencer, not close enough to matter. Different county, different job. Daylight fading, sky low and gray, a gas station coffee cooling in the cup holder. My new phone was mounted on the dash. The route was simple. Stay on State Road 46 for 18 miles. No turns, no shortcuts. Then the app chimed, rerouting. I looked at the screen before I could stop myself. The blue line bent off the highway toward a narrow gray road with no name. My hands tightened on the wheel. A second later, the route corrected itself. Back to the highway. 18 miles straight. Normal, explainable. A signal hiccup, a traffic refresh, nothing. But just before the screen changed, for less than a breath, I saw a label slide into view over the empty gray road. Not rest haven, not peaceful rest, just one word, memorial. A semi passed in the opposite lane, throwing wind and wet grit against my windshield. The wipers dragged it away. I drove straight past the turn. I kept driving, and for the next 18 miles, I watched every road sign like it might be the one thing in the world willing to tell me the truth. And that's the end of today's chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story and want more nights full of suspense, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and turn on the bell so you never miss a scare. I've got plenty more stories waiting for you, so stick around and check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe and don't look behind you.